HealthTech Innovation Conclave. Since morning, we had some interesting sessions on how government can make a difference in the healthcare ecosystem, how industry can make a difference in digital transformation. It was followed by a panel discussion on building resilient and sustainable healthcare infrastructure. It was followed by another panel discussion on the future of pharma ecosystem and digitally empowered world. And then we had three industry presentations. And now we are back in the second half of this prestigious conclave. And for that, this panel discussion will be focusing on the digitalization of the pharma industry, especially in the new normal. And for that, we have got eminent speakers with us who will be part of this panel discussion. Let me first invite Mr. Rajneesh Dev, consulting editor of APAC News Network, on stage. Will be playing the role of moderator for this session. Let me invite Mr. Ganesh Ramachandran, Global Chief Information Officer, Alvin Laboratories Limited. Welcome, Mr. Ganesh. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're joined by Mr. Sriji Gopinathan, Chief Information Officer, Roofing Limited. We welcome Mr. Sriji. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're joined by Mr. Naveen Singhania, Chief Information Officer, Oaknet Healthcare. We welcome Mr. Naveen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're also joined by Mr. Nikhil Shembekar, Head Digital Analytics, Supply Chain and Emerging Technologies at Sun Pharma. We welcome Mr. Nikhil. We're also joined by Mr. Atanu Bhaumik, Head Technology Accelerator, Prism Life Sciences Limited. I think we have seen Mr. Atanu. He was here only. I request Nikhil if you just on board with me because he's here. We welcome Mr. Atanu Bhaumik, Head of Technology, Prism Life Sciences Limited. And we're also joined by Rakshit Desai, Head Digital Initiatives of Juventus Healthcare Limited. Can we have a chair on stage, please? Yeah. I think we need two chairs. Yeah. Okay, fine. Only one chair. So over to Rajneesh and over to the speakers. Thank you.
Thanks, Shabik. It's always the most difficult time of a presentation of any conference immediately post lunch. So all people are supporting it at that time, and we, I'm sure all the eminent panelists here will energize the audience. It's a great responsibility on them. So Shabik has already done the introduction. So primarily what we would like to focus is especially post-pandemic, how the pharma industry are looking at different facets of digitization. And the way I would like is, I would first go through all of you panelists and ask each of you to mention one digitization initiative, which might be your organization has undertaken, or it might be what you feel is happening. And we are talking about not the things which have been happening for some years, but more we are like to emphasize on things which have happened post-pandemic. And then we will take it up from there. So maybe I will start with you, Ganesh. If you can mention one key digitization initiative which either Alpine has done or overall in the pharma industry, which you feel is very relevant in the current situation.
Thanks. Is this on?
Sure.
Okay. So thanks again for having me here, and great to be part of a face-to-face event with multiple friends from the industry. So I think the big one that we did during the pandemic was we came up with a platform for doctors to engage their patients. It's called Connect to Clinic. We've had over 100,000 consultations that have happened on that platform. Over 35,000 doctors who are part of that platform and actively using it. So if you're asking the one initiative, I think that's the one that we really went after. Focused largely with customer centricity. So we went and asked our key customers, the doctors, what do they want help from us when the pandemic hit. And what they told us was that they were very worried about how their patients would stay healthy. And how do we also make sure that they stay engaged with their patients. So that's what we went out to build, and in June of 2020, We launched a beta version of this with a set of doctors. And post that it's kind of grown on, so it is no longer we always wanted it to be a patient engagement platform, not just a teleconsult platform. So it has got info bites that can be shared with patients by doctors. It has got the remote practice as well that they can kind of do. So offline practice as well that they can take on, which currently is very helpful. And it's something that keeps evolving as we're going along. So now we're looking to kind of evolve it with more therapy-specific kind of areas that we're kind of going on to. Because each therapy has a different set of requirements. So a psychiatrist, for instance, may need a 45-minute to a 1-hour consultation as compared to a GP who needs hardly a 10-minute consultation. So things like that, along with how do you have critical notes being captured, how do you have the ease of prescriptions kind of coming through. Those are the kind of things that we're looking to kind of add on. So if you ask me, my big takeaway of what we kind of put together on that was looking at saying how do we enable connections to happen with the doctors and the doctors with the patients. So that's the big thing that we took on. Thanks.
Excellent. In fact, in the next round, we would like to discuss more elaborately on this topic between connection between pharma and healthcare and how digitization is sort of helping. Shiriji, I'll come to you next with the same question. The digitization initiative that you would like to sort of prioritize or mention.
Can I say Peter?
I'm sure there will be multiple initiatives or something like that.
Just kidding. Okay. I think Ganesh has talked about the front-end patient engagement, doctor engagement initiatives. Let me talk about what we have done on the manufacturing and quality side. We have set out on a pretty significant digital transformation journey in that space. 20 plus use cases, but let me just pick out maybe one or two of those. The most interesting one that we are looking at is obviously the yield improvement one, which is easy to guess, but very difficult to get the actual results. We are focusing on a couple of our products, both in API as well as in formulation, and looking at how do we go to a top quantile first and then to a top design in terms of the efficiency that we can. So this sounds very simple, but it was not, because even the data sources in many cases were not digitized. So we had to go through an initiative of historical data digitization by using technologies like OCR and text reading technologies. And also we had to digitize the current data that is coming. So we have to start from there, go through the modeling exercise using the historic data that was converted. Basically sat a bunch of people down and they were actually running these algos on those historic data. And then we also had some of the partners here there as well work with us to digitize some of the sources and then really develop data analytics core competency within the organization, not just in IT, but also with other functions as well. So that is one interesting example that we are looking at. We are seeing some early results. We are trying to look at other products as well. Another one maybe I would like to call out is slightly different to a typical one would be things like root cause analysis. Where how do you go and find out when the line has stopped, or in a lab there is too much of incidents happening. How do you do a data-based root cause analysis rather than the traditional ways of looking at a particular case and figuring out what is wrong, and maybe even start predicting. In this particular type of test, there are chances that this might happen. What are the predictive steps that we can take in terms of avoiding? So these are the kind of couple of use cases. There are many more.
Okay, great. So I'll just before going to the next speaker, ask you one question around. Since it's primarily data that you are gathering and then deriving insights about it, two challenges here. One, there is an issue of data privacy, especially in medical records. And though there is certain ambiguity about data privacy in India, but still consciousness is present. So how do you tackle that challenge there? And the other thing is, again, this data you are gathering from very diverse kind of sources. So one, that nature of the data is very disparate, And second is maybe even the authenticity of all that might be suspect in certain cases. So in that case, ultimately to apply analytics and derive meaningful insights, unless the data itself is in any case compromised, then there will be a challenge. So how are we looking at meeting these
Well, I mean,
challenges?
see, when you look at data privacy, it's mostly about the external data that we're concerned about, patient data, doctor data, whatever. And we actually are not interested in knowing whose data it is. We by policy, we make sure that that data doesn't get into our system. So we are only interested in the what of the data, and that gets in an aggregated manner into our systems, and that's what we use for analytics. When it comes to internal data, more than privacy, it's a regulatory concerns which we are more worried about. And the good thing is that in the recent past, if we look, even regulators want digitization, right? Because they are seeing that where the digitization happened, the audits and the checks that they're able to do is a lot more faster and authentic rather than waiting for the results for a day or two of asking. So and they are also encouraging us. So the challenge there is when you start feeding back the loop of the control system back into the machines or the instruments, that's where the challenge is. We are not there. So we are still collecting the data, we are analyzing the data, we are feeding the outcomes to the people. And people are then taking a decision to take action or not. So the maturity curve is not there.
Okay, got it. So Naveen, next I come to you and your digitalization initiative that you would like to have.
When the pandemic broke out, I was working in Pfizer, and one fine day we had a lockdown and we had 2,000 strong field force, which had nothing to do. So luckily we were having Viva. So I talked to Viva guys, can we initial have a setup for video calling to the doctors? So we did that, and within 2 weeks we were able to set up video calling with all the doctors, by which we were able to showcase all our products as we were detailing earlier, only through digital media, and only approved content was shown to them. And doctors were very happy. They were not able to see anybody, but earlier in the clinic, if you are getting 30 seconds, 1 minute, doctors were giving us at an average of 9 to 10 minutes in those sessions. As a very big solution we did. But for employees also, we had this point that we were initiating teams for collaboration. Wherever you are, you have a file share, a video calling, a chat, and everything available. So 2,000, 3,000 field force and office staff, they were able to use Teams very effectively during this pandemic season. Those are two big things which we did.
Okay. So again, that point which you would like to get up in the next round, it's collaboration between pharma and healthcare. So we'll take this up next. So Nikhil, I'll come to you next. My point is,
Thanks. So I think, so at Sun Pharma, I handle multiple portfolios, including manufacturing and analytics, as well as the HR technology piece. So while there were multiple initiatives which have been done on the digitization side over the last couple of years, primarily on the manufacturing, improvement of employee productivity, which we just spoke about, yield improvement and stuff like that. So we've also been doing some, working around that. It's a tough problem to crack. But one thing that we did over the last couple of years, which is very close to my heart, is we digitized the entire employee life cycle implements. So we implemented success factors, which was done globally for more than 30,000 employees at Sun Pharma, including our subsidiary companies and other areas as well. So this essentially helped us to move away from paper-based, records to completely digitizing the entire, talent management, succession planning, the entire employee lifecycle activities. And just a couple of days back, we also went live with our payroll system as well. So we completely digitize the entire, employee experience of the speaker. And there are many more initiatives that we are going to undertake in this area. So while we did a lot of work on the manufacturing and supply chain and those areas, but I think this is another area which kind of gets overlooked, but it's also an important thing, from an employee experience perspective. So that's what I wanted to highlight.
great. So in fact, when you're talking about employee lifecycle management, I'd like to ask, might sound funny, but the thing is, unlike many of the sectors who we know usually when we definitely went to work from home, and then gradually though that number dwindled, but still significant. But pharma being, I would rightly mention that manufacturing-based industry and connected closely with healthcare. Many cases you just can't do work from home. You can't manufacture from home.
I think none of the plants actually shut down. It was value for a day or so. None of the plants actually shut
So
down.
how do you manage that?
So I think, so that's where I think a lot of the people on the ground are empowered to take a lot of decisions in terms of ensuring a clean and a sanitized workplace. So ability, including top management also visited a lot of the plants, giving more confidence to all the employees. So these are some of the initiatives that were undertaken. So and also ability for a lot of the people sitting in corporate so that they can work from home and support the people on the plant. So these are some of the initiatives.
Okay. Great. Then I'll come to the next.
Yeah, thank you for that. Two challenges right now. Second, second, last in the queue. All of us will do all this. Okay, looking at the kind of digitalization approaches, what we have taken, we have certain plans in our company, and it was more of internal approach what we have taken, where we have looked at human make errors. So what we went ahead in getting an automation done and digitalization done, creating a convergence between the IT part and the OT part. Okay, this is where we have started getting into and exploring the possibilities, and that is what we have started upon. A, B, the data was already existing, but then this was mostly, human generated data kind of things. So we have looked into a situation where uh, this particular thing can be addressed upon, and using the digitalization and IT convergence and OT convergence possibilities and all those things, and we have arrived at the IT the possible thing for us as a manufacturing in our manufacturing process while we are getting into other automation parts. So that is what I think precisely I would say, because there are other leading effects to this which will follow as it comes in, which will generate the data analytics. And this is more not towards the market approach, it's more of an internal corrections and building our own health.
So that's interesting. You mentioned about the IT and the OT part. So one challenge which many of the, not just pharma, even manufacturing industry are looking at an IoT deployment, the facing is we are fairly conversant, especially when talking about security, to the IT security part. There are fairly good amount of solution providers who are IT, and for the OT, that's the real challenge. How do you isolate the OT first, the production environment, and those OT security challenges? So, what has been your
What is going to what we have done is we have created a perimeter security, and we have created a virtual LAN in our system, wherein the OT is definitely generating its data, but then it is having an isolation digitized zone, which is not a part. So the IT guys, which is the business data probably, or the workflow data, which is the process workflow, and the process unit which is done. Those data, those areas of data are not in any way intersecting with this. It's about accumulating this data in a system, in a source, keeping it in isolation, like quarantine patients inside an hospital kind of things. That's how it is coming out, and whenever on the need basis, this with the 0%, that is what I'm saying. Things are going to follow as first things are done, and also this will address to much extent to the question what was posed to the friend, how production can be managed from sitting at home. Well, we'll do that. And it's not fun.
last but not the least, Rakshit, I'll come to your point of view on the digitalization initiative you would like to highlight.
Okay, so we as an organization realize that digitalization is very important role, and to grow and connect better, digitalization is very important role. So we have started with various digital initiatives, and our key focus remain on the three things: better customer experience, better healthcare professionals experience, and better employee experience. So what digital initiative we are planning and to roll out is somewhat revolves around improving the experience altogether. Uh, Most of has spoken about engagement with the doctors digitally. So that is something one of the important area going forward. The traditionally the human to human touch augmented with the digital touch point as well, and the entire journey at the life cycle and the experience and engagement in the hybrid way is something the way forward. And that is something giving the pandemic has also shown that is something the way forward. And there is a better, someone has definitely said that doctor is giving more time digitally, and that establish more stronger relationship with healthcare provider. Same way, the patients are becoming more and more information aware. So the information is no longer restricted nowadays. So how to have the information of which customer needs in a better way, and how to engage them with overall their health is something a very important one. So content we see as another important area to drive everything, and to have the excellent customer experience, or let's say healthcare experience. It is very important that the internal employee experience become richer. And they also, basically, we are also planning about the change management in terms of having digital literacy and having the right set of learning in the team for connecting digitally and using the things for better productivity, better relationship building, and ultimately driving a better experience altogether. Excellent.
So, if I may sum up what is coming out is two areas very broadly, I say. One, most people are focused on the internal digital transformation, be it in terms of, as you mentioned, enhancing productivity, optimizing productivity, if I may say, improving customer experience, then a lot of employee experience, internal employee experience, then things like production environment where IoT deployment has been enhanced. And the second area that we heard about is what we'd like to discuss now. Connect with the healthcare, the doctors and the hospitals. So since Ganesh and Naveen, I think, mentioned this one, I'll start this round with two of you, maybe with Ganesh first. If we look at in isolation pharma sector and the healthcare sector, and we heard about healthcare sector from the morning also, but one challenge is that pharma, if we see the IT maturity curve is on much higher level, there has been much stringent IT deployment there. On the other hand, healthcare not so. One of the reasons till now, the caregivers themselves, the doctors and maybe even the nurses, they have not been that way IT savvy or technology savvy. Maybe they are busy with what their primary role has been. So when there is a disparity in the IT maturity between a pharma and the healthcare sector, and you are saying, and obviously during the pandemic, its necessity has driven the two to converge together, and that's why our theme today is also the HealthTech and PharmaTech converge. So, what has been the challenge that you faced, and how will you mitigate that challenge?
Thanks for the question. So, great point. So, I think the thing that we really saw, many of the initial hypotheses that we had when we launched. So, let me just back up a bit. So, March of 2020, when we said, what do we need to do, like Naveen was pointing out again, saying, how do we get our people to engage with doctors? That was where it started off. But when we went, so we did what any good organization would do, which is we went and spoke to about 2,000 of our doctors and said, doctor, what do you like from us? And what we heard was very eye-opening. What we heard was doctors said what I said earlier. And so the hypothesis initially for us going in was exactly what we laid out. That perhaps the doctors who are younger would adopt digital technologies more. doctors who are in metro cities would adopt it more. But we were wrong on both counts. We found that many of the older doctors have been some of the most ardent users of platforms. We have found that in tier 2 towns, many of them have been using platforms to connect with specialists where they don't have a thing or they want a referral. And they've been getting patients to join them on the call to kind of take it across. So we found many of what we thought was the initial thing, those hypotheses got busted. And it got busted very early on as we started out our initiative. Second, I would tend to disagree that pharma is ahead of the curve on digital. I think we've got a long way to catch up, especially with some of the other industries that we were talking about at lunch. So we do have a long way to catch up in pharma as well, especially when it comes to the front office. So if you were to look at the place where the healthcare and the pharma industry merged, I think it was in the common goal of saying that we want to ensure that patients remain healthy. If you look at all that pharma did, whether it was making sure that manufacturing was running, the supply chain and distribution chains were kind of ensuring the last mile that the drug was available to patients. I think that is where the pharma and healthcare really came together. Specifically, the point that you raised, saying that how did it really come together, what were things that we did to make sure it happened. From the get-go, when we started launching the platform, we realized very clearly that this required a lot of handholding. Handholding, so the people who were taking the platform across to the doctors were our internal sales staff, which we have a large number, which kind of helped. So we trained them, got them in turn to train the doctors and take them through what it was about, why should they consider a platform like this. Second, we also set up a 24/7 call center support because it wasn't just the doctors who wanted handholding. The patients as well needed a lot of handholding. And especially if you look at rural India, what people call as Bharat, where many of the patients were actually kind of coming in for things like this, you saw that they had very basic queries because some of the patients who were older had no clue on how to use these kinds of platforms. So helping them through the payment gateway, scheduling appointments, making sure they came in. If a prescription is uploaded, where did they go and pull it out from? How do they kind of access it? All of those required handholding, not just at an English level, but also at vernacular levels. So from the word get-go, we had a 24/7 call center support that we invested and said that the call center needs to be trained, the people will handle not just doctors, but patients. And there was also a fair amount of tech support that is provided by our teams to the call center to be able to take these guys in. Point number one. Point number two was, given that we are a lot more comfortable as an industry, like Nikhil was also mentioning, it's a very face-to-face led industry. So the doctor was comfortable with my sales guy on the ground. So we also said, doctor, if you have a problem, reach out to this person. And he will do whatever is necessary internally to help you get what you require. That I can help in the platform gaining mileage and people being able to do it with us.
So MRs,
The MRs, we were connecting with doctors and saying, and initially, almost for the first 3 months, the entire leadership team, me included, were reaching out to the doctors who had consultations, said what worked well, what didn't work well, what did you like, what didn't you like, how can I make the experience better for you? It was a whole amount of feedback that we did on it to understand what worked, what did not work. Because simple things like what you think is what is required, when the guy goes on over there, he finds that this is not the way it is. For example, if you set a teleconsultation appointment, the guy goes in for the consultation. And we had initially the consultation that doctors were taking on their phones. And he got a call in between, and the consultation dropped. What does he do then? So even simple ones like that were ones that we needed to troubleshoot on, make sure that you had a problem-free solution, especially in a country like India where you have different kinds of mobile phones that people carry, different kinds of platforms that they are all part of, different versions of the Android that they are on. You needed to have a solution that worked across all of this. And the initial parts we failed miserably, to tell you very honestly. Including where, and a lot of it was a learning that we came with on what could blindside you. So for instance, the day we launched, we suddenly found that the OTPs were not working. And everything was great till then. So what happened? TRI had come out with a regulation saying that you cannot have marketing and you need to register as a non-marketing agency if you wanted OTPs to work. We had no clue. So, and all of this contributes to the experience of the patient and the doctor, because when they see a platform coming, And which is what you and I would like when we kind of engage the platform. It should be hassle free. It should help me in what I'm doing. And that is what our biggest learning was. And to that extent, I go back to what I was saying. I don't think it matters whether it was pharma or healthcare, providing a seamless experience, providing something that helps the user, and the ability to add on things. So, for instance, the other thing which we kind of picked up was we found that many of the people, especially in rural places, even in metros, were setting the appointment up for an older person and they was elsewhere, either overseas or in some other city. So you need a three-way consult to be done, not just a doctor and patient consultation. So enabling all those as part of the product features was what we kind of learned and went along our journey, and I think that's what helped in making it. So long answer to a short question, apologies.
Yes, but very excellent valid points. We'll talk a little more detail about this later. Yeah.
I think the biggest loser in this whole epidemic were those guys who are suffering from chronic diseases or who are having or the oncology patients, right? Because they were not able to meet their doctors or have a consultation like now I'm a diabetic, I'm not able to do walking because in my society walking is wrong. Those were the issues which patients were facing and trying to reach out to doctors, and they were finding there is no single platform where they can do it, right? So what we did was we started this telemedicine for rural patients as well as for three ways, like he said. Three ways. One, there's a doctor who's sitting in that city, like maybe Sholapur, for example. He will have a consultation with a specialist sitting in Bombay. If you are a chronic patient like arthritis, or you are an oncology patient, earlier you used to go once a month to Bombay hospital, get the consultation done, come back. Right? Now that possibility is not there. How do you do that? So therefore, we did that telemedicine thing. You sit in your place, go to that nearest doctor who is enrolled in this platform. He will set it up with you, and then you have a three-way communication. Those are the things which were like, at the time when you face this issue, you realize how to handle it. Right? And we realize, of course, that there are patients who are now relying more and more on Google. There was a three times jump in patients looking for treatment for things like headache. Things like, it's because they are stressed out. They don't know what to do, so they Google it. Now, how do you get this information as a company and then figure out what you're going to do? So, those are the stuff which we have been working out and see how we can make doctors come together on a platform like telemedicine and allow patients to search for things which they are looking for in the pandemic. So, like platforms like 1mg, this Apollo 24 by 7, PharmEasy, they have grown like anything in the last 2 years. And then nobody was going to their farm because they had a chemist who just beside you. Now they feel we are reaching chemist के पास नहीं जाना, somebody should drop the medicine at my society door. I will put the sanitizer on top of it and I take my medicine. And that is regularly, those who are regular patients for them is very important. That means they get the medicine in time. कल अगर खत्म हो रही है दवाई तो एक दिन पहले घर में आना चाहिए. So those are the things which I have seen with help in this whole pandemic stuff. And what is more important is like, we have got, in all companies, I think we are sitting here, we have got this platform called Doctors Pro, we call it. Everybody is putting their product there in the platforms. Now, doctors are not interested in having so many platforms. They would like to have a single placeholder, जहाँ पे वो अपना appointment करेगा, अपना patient का details देखेगा, whole file is there, and then he is happy. So for that, I realized Practo was very successful. They provided a single platform where appointment is managed, consultation is managed, teleconsultation is managed, medication is managed, everything is done. Doctors were very, very happy in finding out these solutions in that platform.
So, both of you mentioned a lot of aspects on this connection between pharma and healthcare. Two things arising out of which. One, Ganesh earlier mentioned, if we look at ultimately all these platforms depended on connectivity, the quality of connectivity. And we know, and especially when we are talking about hinterland, we are going to the hinterland, the quality of connectivity definitely is not uniform. It's pretty poor in many areas beyond the metros. So when there is a question over the quality of internet connectivity, how will you ensure that uniformly that reaches out? That is one. The second aspect, Naveen, you mentioned about the Googling for diseases. There's an aspect, in fact, when the lockdown started, it was coincidental, but at the same time, the telemedicine bill got passed. Now, that brings with a lot of these medical legal challenges. And a lot of doctors were very concerned about that. It's typical this patient is doing their own cooking. And so when you are talking about these platforms proliferating, how did this medical legal aspect, how that challenge on that aspect got mitigated? So this is an open question. Any one of you can take that.
So I think I think already. Okay, good. So when we launched the platform, the telemedicine guidelines had come out end of March, the first guideline was already launched. And we did look at all of those guidelines when we went into it. So I think the basic one that you look at when you're a pharma company providing a platform like this is I have no idea what is the prescription doctor's like. Whatever is between the doctor and the patient is between them. It's encrypted, it's kept between them. I don't have access to it. I don't know if he's written a drug, I don't know what drugs are being prescribed. It is what the doctor thinks is right for their patients.
But that was conforming to the
Absolutely. The second big part of the regulation that was needed was you needed to validate that it was a bona fide doctor before you got the doctor enrolled on the platform. So which meant that you needed the MCI registration number, it got validated, and only then you kind of got the doctor on the platform. The onus to ensure that it's a bona fide doctor was the platform. And the third big one, associated with the first point, was the entire area of data privacy and information security was the onus of the platform again. So the platform was supposed to maintain the information security part that was there. So the platform that we have, of course, it's built on a cloud architecture and a serverless architecture. But it takes care of all the basic principles of InfoSec. It is HIPAA compliant and pertains, and that was something that we showed doctors as well, that this is what we had, and which is what led doctors to believe that they should not do consultations on some of the other platforms or the regular messaging platforms that were available to them, of which they were consulting earlier. Coming to your question of connectivity, so what we looked at was today, if you look at connectivity, most of the rural areas and areas where everyone uses mobiles, they stream, they kind of pick up shows on their mobile. So we looked for a platform that had a low amount of capability for a video consult that is required. And it's not that you need the video consultation to be on right through the 15 minutes, so it's a 15-minute consultation. Typically, a doctor looks at the first 5 to 10 minutes, and after that, he just takes you through what is required. That is what we have gone with, and we mimic as much as possible what the real life was. So if it's a first-time consultation, you have a separate kind of a time structure and costing for it, or follow-on consultation could have different, and you can upload multiple things on it. So that's the way we kind of went through the questions that you raised. I mean, if you want that.
Can you hear me? So, in addition to what Ganesh said, what provided and what looked good for us is we actually created a sort of a platform even before this pandemic started, which was actually bringing together legal help for doctors. Now, that kind of gave us a headway. So what we did is that in the platform, we brought in what is relevant from a consult point of view, and that was absorbed by the legal professionals who were already in the platform, and they could very quickly turn around and provide any help that the doctors needed. So whatever we do in terms of the compliance requirement, information security requirement, there are problems. Okay? And doctors were very thankful in this scenario that they were actually not out there, they were also doing at home, and then they were also getting virtual help as far as legal complications are concerned. So many of those were also built into the platform, and that's kind of becoming a standard now if you look at some of the platforms that is coming out.
I think the biggest point which you are talking from pharmacological is where do you keep the patient information and the history of prescription. So there what we did was we kept at arm's length. We had a vendor who was doing this load management and of course encrypted. No information was coming back to us except the summary. How many consultations you had? Is there a repeat consultation? We didn't even know which medication is being prescribed. Is it our medicine or competition medicine? We didn't know that. It's just more like an initially when we should bring the patient and doctor together and figure out what.
Nikhil, I'll come to you. This is a concluding round, and what I'd like to focus on the manufacturing, the supply chain distribution, So now my question is looking ahead. If we look ahead for the next 3 to 4 quarters, maybe 18 to 24 months, slightly longer. So why do you think, especially vis-a-vis manufacturing or the supply chain or distribution logistics, where would the maximum digitization take place? And what shape it will take?
Thanks. I think that's a very important question. All of us are, from our perspective, I think we know that I think pharma is now picking up on the digitalization part. So I think we were all laggards, and thanks to the pandemic, I think things have kind of slowly improved in terms of the uptake in terms of implementing digital technologies and solutions in multiple areas. My own take is there will be a lot more focus on the manufacturing and supply chain. Of course, there will be other areas. I don't want to read too much from a futuristic perspective, but what I see is there will be an increased focus on improving productivity in our manufacturing areas. A lot of talk is happening in terms of improving yield, ability to ship your drugs faster, ability to respond to the situations like COVID in a much more faster way. So I think there will be an increased focus in digitalization on the manufacturing side. There will be more automation, what we call as the industry 4.0. There will be more plans. Some of the pharma companies are already much ahead. Most of the pharma companies will now play catch up in those areas. So I think this is what I feel. That we will look at.
Okay. Great. And just one question. You mentioned about the IoT deployment that you have done and how that will look at. See, one of the things what we have seen during the pandemic is the clinical trials, because especially all the vaccines, the whole process, maybe the clinical trial process, is usually much longer, while it was shortened obviously for reasons we all know. So, how will an IoT deployment or those sort of digitization help you not just, I'd say, smoothening the entire, also accelerate the rate of manufacturing? And so, what is the role of digitization there?
Well, it cannot be a quick one-line answer, number one. Number two, when you're talking about convergence of IT and OT, I'm talking many things in that one line. Is A, probably there will be a very low requirement of the quality mechanism, the quality control mechanism. The quality control mechanism will be shortened as a result. Because the failure rate, the mean difference between two failures will automatically come down. As I say, the errors are made by not by the design of the process. The errors are made adhering to the process. Now, while automation takes over, the human element is getting controlled. Number one,
That quality control, the process can be shortened.
quality control.
But how won't that impact the
I'll tell you.
performance part?
I'll tell you. I'll try to relate it to the flow shop. What is happening? Say there is a batch which is going on, and there are probably three stages. Just a hypothetical example. So the output of stage one becomes input for the stage two. Now, whatever is expected out and going in, there will be a loss of material, loss due to material handling. And there are other factors like that. Just to keep it short, I'm just like so there will be a cost management coming into the production will automatically go up because your estimates are going as per the plans. So these are the other things, and it will have numerous subsets to that if you look at it that way. And also along with that, when I was talking about the data, and we should not be missing out, we will be leading to everything into just trying to join the previous question and this question together so that the take home is a better one. That the traceability of the activities that at the different stages of the logistics from the OEM to the patient. All of this is again happening to happen, and there is something like blockchain will take out. Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And just going back to the future question that you asked, I thought it's very important to bring a very significant market situation that most of the pharma companies will be facing. The pricing erosion happening in the US is actually having an impact on all of our organizations, I believe. And that means, while we are wanting to invest on a lot of these digital transformation technologies, there has to be a lot of focus on taking costs out. And there are also digitization in play, but it's a different sort of digitization. Big technologies like RPA, for example. Gross to net calculation and the leakages that happens in that discount and the claims that happen in the US market. FTS, failure to ship related penalties. These are also becoming very, very high focus areas, and the technology has a significant role to play. Otherwise, US market is becoming extremely challenging for us.
Rakshit, maybe you are the last word on the future.
I think the digitization is very important for being relevant and also to grow. Some of the points which came is the hybrid connectivity is one of the important part with the engagement with the HCPs and all. Data being very important role. So the content which engage and content which educate is something very important part in digitalization, and digital content being easily accessible is somewhat important. The another important area I believe is the when the digitization gives access of a lot of data generation and insights. So using this data for more meaningful, actionable insight is something very important. So having a like business intelligence kind of a platform and all the capabilities within the team to utilize those data for faster decision making and doing corrections, very rapidly is the very important part for being more successful. Like he mentioned that how initially going and experimenting on the platform they did, and learning quickly and from those failures and mistakes and correcting it quickly. So data analytics is also very important now. So whatever digitization we do, the digitization gives the ability of the analytics. So this must be taken care very well, and this must be tried with the proper change management within the organizations to make this successful, so that this doesn't become only a activity of being present on digitally, but it actually acceptance of digitization and taking the real benefit of it.
Exactly. So, when we conclude, we may sum up the going ahead, post-pandemic, the primary digitization focus has been creation of platforms where pharma connects with the healthcare givers, the doctors, in hospitals. A lot of manufacturing processes have been accelerated and more and more automation so that the errors also come down. An important aspect that was mentioned was optimization so that the budgets are kept to a minimal. A lot of focus on internal employee improvement and the lifecycle management of employee enhancing customer experience. Excellent points were discussed today. Due to paucity of time, we have to finish it here. And just before wrapping up, I would like to invite Ms. Chandramukha Mohanty to just hand over a token of appreciation to all our panelists. May I address Ganesh Ramachandran?
Thanks, Rajni and all the panelists for a wonderful and insightful panel discussion on pharma tech per se. And now we have a special guest. May I say from the government of Spain, we have with us Ms. Vanessa Alvarez Franco, Commercial Counselor of Economic and Commercial Office in Mumbai, Embassy of Spain in India. Welcome, ma'am. Can you please come on stage? I'm sure that the special address will be focusing on kind of opportunities Spain is offering to India in terms of healthcare and farm industry. If I'm not wrong, in 2017 there was a bilateral agreement between India and Spain, especially with the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and the Spain's Health Ministry, in which they talked about collaboration for smart energy, smart grid, and also with a focus on digital health. So I'm sure that will give us some insight. And I hope that we'll be knowing more about the Spain's health evolution beyond the real countries and the rest of the world. Over to you, Vanessa. A huge round of applause for her, please.
Well, thank you very much. It is an honor to be here and to have this opportunity to speak with you. Let me just start remembering together that the past 2 years were really a challenge for all the healthcare systems worldwide. In Spain, we were very proud of our health system. It provides universal coverage to all our citizens and also to foreign people. And it ranks well in international standards. For instance, Spain is the 13th country in the world in terms of health infrastructure, and we rank 5th in terms of life expectancy. For instance, we have a life expectancy at birth that is 82 years for men and 87 years for women. And we also rank 5th in terms of a healthy life expectancy. So we were so proud, and actually, the starting point for Spain was fair, no? But still, I know you're all very aware of the challenges we faced throughout the pandemic. The amount of problems that arose just were, like suddenly were lightened by the pandemic, and the vulnerabilities and the ways to improve our system that suddenly were obvious for everybody. No? So we started a process of reform, of investment, and technological improvements, and also a very important commitment with the health workers to improve the human capital that is assigned to the sector. Well, nowadays, the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry in Spain is sound, and it is rooted on solid basic science, highly qualified human capital, cutting-edge technological innovations that we support from the government, and an integrated healthcare system that provides coverage for everybody, as I said before. So let me just comment with you some ideas about how we take care of the sector, what we do to try to be leaders, to try to continue supporting growth and development and further investments in the sector. Well, we have an extensive network of 800 hospitals. The size of Spain is, I always say, like Maharashtra and Gujarat all together. That is the land, the surface that we have, with 47 million people only. So 800 hospitals is not bad for that size. We connect them with universities, with an ecosystem of companies doing innovation for them. And we support them with a strong pharmaceutical sector. In Spain, we have 425 pharmaceutical companies. 60% of them are foreign companies that have invested in our country a long time ago and that help us to keep growing. The public healthcare in Spain represents 6.3% of our GDP, while the private healthcare is only 2.7%. Together, it is around 9% of our GDP. We cherish scientific output in this sector. Actually, we rank fifth in Europe in terms of scientific output in the sector. And we offer, as the Spanish government, funding, low-interest loans to the sector and support to the startups that work in the healthcare system. We also offer tax deductions. For instance, we offer company tax rate deductions of up to 42% for R&D investments and 12% for innovation, as well as a 40% deduction on the social contributions of workers. For instance, in our pharma sectors, we have 5,000 workers who only do R&D activities, and their jobs have this special support with the deduction in the social contribution. We also think it is important to support through clinical testing. Spain collaborates in 20% of the clinical tests that are happening around the world. And actually, clinical trials are happening, 1,000 clinical trials are being done in our hospitals in Spain. We also collaborate with the support of 80 science and technology parks, research centers, technology institutes and universities, everything to support the sector. And we also, luckily, we have a surplus of talent, of a big base of highly skilled workers that keep contributing to the growth of this sector. Well, we have identified some opportunities for investment, especially in the sector, in healthcare, and I would like to share them with you for you to know what is Spain doing actually in this field. We are trying to help R&D in healthcare technology. We see, as has already been mentioned many times during the day, we see that it is very important to go for quicker and smarter diagnostics. So we are supporting an increase in the investments in R&D in healthcare technology. We have also identified opportunities in personalized medicine, especially pharmacogenomics. We see that it is critical to decrease the cost of administering drugs, and we are also trying to grow and to invest more in this line of work. And finally, we see an opportunity in the new generation of biosimilars. As you know better than myself, the patents on several of these drugs are about to expire, biological drugs, and we see an opportunity there for the industry. Let me also comment with you and share some ideas about the collaboration between India and Spain. Well, as I told you before, most of the international brands are present in Spain with their own factories. They invested in Spain a long time ago. But we also have many Spanish companies present in India. A lot of our companies have already come to India, and they have subsidiaries or long-term distributors with whom they work in India. For instance, we have Sun Pharma, Grifols, Igenomics, Altec, Kairesal, Matachana. All of them are Spanish companies that work with India, that are present here, and it is easy to find their products and services in India. In terms of the equipment, what we normally exchange. For Spain, it is important. In India, for instance, we are present here through mechanotherapy appliances, diagnostic and laboratory agents, sterilizers, instruments and appliances of all kinds for medical, surgical, dental, or veterinary use. respiratory appliances, medical implants. There's also a lot of exchange in this regard, and radiology devices also. So just to finish, because this is a very brief intervention, some few words to share with you. We have been investing in this sector for a long time. We see that after investments, the results come. We have seen how the sector was growing year after year in Spain. We have recently started our collaboration with India. Our companies are more and more related. And we see room, of course, to increase these exchanges much more. No? We have just started, let's say, working together. So let me just finish encouraging us all to keep working together, to keep investing in the sector, being open to the changes that are happening, ready to incorporate them, and to work together to provide a better quality of life for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vanessa Alvarez Franco, Commercial Counselor of Economic and Commercial Office in Mumbai, Embassy of Spain in India. Very important point raised by you that how pandemic has changed things in Spain and how this has also opened up new horizons of India-Spanish collaboration in the healthcare and pharma sector. It reminds me of a film made on the Barcelona Smart City, in which the voiceover was done by Woody Allen. The film actually showed how Barcelona as a city transformed itself into a smart city by keeping the heritage, culture, and how the smart heritage is also being implemented. There also they talked about collaboration. Thank you so much for that. Gracias, as we say in Spanish. I request our consulting editor, Mr. Rajin, to kindly come on stage and hand over the souvenir to Vanessa Alvarez Franco. Big round of applause for her, please. And I'm sure that as APAC network, we can also find areas of collaboration to bring together stakeholders to create that kind of connect between Spain and the Indian counterpart as well in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With this, we move to the next panel discussion, a very important panel discussion of the day on accelerating patient-centric transformation and innovation in healthcare. And for that, we have got eminent speakers with us from the hospital ecosystem of the country. We have with us Dr. Alok Malik, Group CEO, Omni Hospitals. I request Dr. Malik to come on stage, please. A huge round of applause for him, please. We have with us Mr. Nilesh Shinde, Group Chief Technical Officer of Jupiter Hospitals. And we also have with us Mr. Sudhin Nair, Senior Manager, CSG Sales Enterprise Dell Technologies. May I invite Mr. Sudhin Nair to come on stage, please, from Dell Technologies. Rahul, if you can have a word with our team to find a speaker from Dell, but in the meantime, we can start the session. So, if I may ask, if I can start with Dr. Alok Malik, Group CEO of Omni Hospital. By the way, me, Mr. Malik, or Mr. Nilesh Shinde, they have been interacting with each other for last 2 years virtually on various platforms, but perhaps it will be first time after 2 long years. So that's good for you. I hope that we all continue with this. My first question to Dr. Malik will be that what were the principal innovations have you noticed deployed in the hospital during the pandemic? Your thoughts on that, sir? I'm saying that what are the principal innovations or technological deployment you have seen being done in the hospitals during this COVID and pandemic? And how does that help the simple one? I mean, everybody started using it. Okay. I think Mr. Sudhin Nair has also joined us on stage from Dell Technologies. Yeah, Mr. Malik, please continue.
So the innovation during the pandemic was everybody got onto telemedicine platforms. And then suddenly, telemedicine platform became very popular. So many companies coming in. The government of India finally validated telehealth and telemedicine consultations and made them legal. They were not legal earlier, and doctors is there. And lots of telemedicine companies made a lot of money, and that's it.
But in terms of, apart from telemedicine, you have been a veteran in the healthcare industry for so many years. What are the positive things do you think that has happened uh, because of pandemic in terms of hospital infrastructure, hospital management, innovation?
I really wish a lot of things could have happened, should have happened. We yet don't have, not only in India, anywhere in the world, we don't yet have air quality standards. This pandemic spread through the air, and, lots of our working spaces, we don't have air quality standards. A single person infected in a closed air conditioned space like this can spread the infection to anybody else, right? Um, I remember reading in my STM books that when the Great Cholera happened, cholera epidemics happened in England, that led to a lot of water quality standards being established, and they were followed all over the world, so that you have safe water to drink, but we don't have safe air to breathe in our workspaces today. The technology exists. In our operation theaters, we use HEPA filters. In our aircraft, we use HEPA filters. In our chip manufacturing units, we use HEPA filters, but we don't use them anywhere else. Office goer in our Infosys campus will not use HEPA filtered air, right? It's just that the government needs to mandate this. HEPA filters need to be, once they start getting manufactured at scale, the prices will come down. Technology is there, but safe air is not there. Still, despite the technology being there, right? So that should have happened. As far as innovations are concerned within the hospital, many hospitals tried many things. We have seen robots dispensing medicines, and we have seen automatic sanitizer dispensers, and lots of things people started going without human intervention. But all of those things really weren't great shakes innovations. In the sense that they were just a response to a particular situation. The situation is gone, the responses are gone. There's nothing really long-standing that has stayed with us. Even telemedicine is disappearing. We have all heard how fine prices have crashed, right? Because the business is crashed. Now, this is very sad. We need to now start discussing healthcare IT. Where does healthcare IT stand today? Healthcare IT, everything is available, solutions are available, doctors are willing to use solutions. Everybody has hundreds of apps on their mobiles. Why don't you have an EMR on your mobile? Everything is available. But then, who's going to pay the price? So ultimately, it's a chicken and egg. The government needs to mandate the availability of EHRs in hospitals. Government has already published two versions of the national EHR standards. Government is yet to publish who is going to check whether a particular EHR product is complying with these standards. Government is yet to publish a list of carrot and sticks that if you have a EHR as per standard published by us, you will get say 10% extra payment from insurance, or you get 5% extra payment there, or you'll get dock payment if you don't. This is how NABH came, right? NABH came with a big carrot and stick, and that's why everybody ran for NABH. But nobody is running for EHRs. That's the sad.
Right, but do you think that you talked about government not mandating various things? Do you think that with the National Digital Health Mission, correct or a push in right direction is being initiated by government, or will be still slow? why you're saying so. If you can explain.
When the characteristics started in US, within a period of 5 years, they went from say 5% of hospitals discharged to 60% of hospital discharge. The same thing is not happening in India. National Basic Health Mission is just a policy framework that is not budgeting as well I know. And we started out with a national PHR. Even I made an account of a national PHR. It was so that you will get a national health ID and you can connect with. I do a lot of my own personal tests from Lal Pathway. I've still got to connect my national health ID with my Lal Pathway, right? So that I can straight away get all my reports online. So, I mean, and when I keep trying to dig deeper into this, I said it's a policy document, there is not enough budgeting support, right?
Sudhir, you heard Mr. Dr. Alok Malik. He has raised some pertinent points, pertinent problems, practical challenges. Being someone who is representing the technologies, where do you see that technology innovation can give answers to some of the concerns, if I may say so, put by Dr. Alok Malik, apart from the government angle which he has spoken, can be solved? Your take on that.
So, you see, the pandemic has actually accelerated the adoption of technology, which would have been slow in normal circumstances. And what it has led is that there's a lot of AI ML engines that is now getting deployed, in every field. And healthcare is at the forefront over there. The reason is because it's important to be able to predict something and be able to, prevent something much in advance. And that is where we at Dell are at the forefront of, incorporating AI and ML technologies in our solutions. And especially in healthcare, we've seen that it will help in areas like both clinical care, cognitive therapy, cognitive in terms of rehabilitation. We see a huge state there. One thing that we believe is going to be revolutionary is that you have multiple sets of data today that are being leveraged on AI. But the challenge is also the regulatory and the data privacy, which actually mandates that you can't read into multiple data sets and you need to stick to what is available to your. And that is where you will find a revolutionary technology that's coming in now, where it will allow you to read into multiple data sets, pick up insights from there, and not take the data out. The data stays where it is. So it still is, meeting all the regulatory needs as well as the data privacy laws that are there. And it is able to only take the insights away and then mix it across. So what it is doing is it's creating a better environment for a knowledge base. The errors that could possibly come in just one or two data sets, that's getting eliminated. So it's able to rationalize the insights that it's. So that is something that is coming that we see with AI and in each and every space. Other area that we believe is going to be hugely revolutionary is going to be on the artificial augmented reality or the virtual reality or mixed reality. So we see a lot of surgeries that will happen, which will be enabled by this technology. We already started seeing it in some sectors. On top of it, what will also happen is we see it in special healthcare elements also. Now, I earlier talked about cognitive therapies. If I were to give a use case, how pretty well is actually helping this or enabling this is that we're looking at trauma victims, people have gone through trauma in accidents. And if we are able to recreate the same situation and change the patient's stimulus or reaction, with the help of technology, that is something that we are investing on. And it's really paying dividends over there. So another area that we spoke to speak about is with respect to robotics. Robotics with mixed reality type of environment could actually save a lot of lives because you don't require the doctor or the specialist to be sitting right in front of the patient and doing it. It could be done from a remote location, with the help of a medicine. So I believe that today technology is there. The only problem that we're facing is it's very reactive in adoption. That it's it's triggered by something that goes wrong, like we saw through the pandemic, rather than it being proactively being used for changing the lifestyle of people or being better. So that's a thing that we have.
Right. Thanks, Sudhir, for those insights. And I'll ask Mr. Nilesh Shinde, Group Chief Technical Officer in the hospital. Mr. Shinde, you heard both Dr. Malik and Sudhir as well. So he also spoke about a lot of technology, like AI, augmented reality, and other things. But he also pointed out a very important issue of privacy, data privacy, especially patient data privacy. So, how do you think that hospitals are placed today in Tier 1 cities or Tier 2 cities when we talk about privacy of data? And what is the present scenario and where do you see it's going towards?
During this pandemic, everyone, this pandemic taught us a lesson. I think in healthcare also, we have found out that a lot of opportunities are there, challenges are there. Now, if you see that now this artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, all this terminology for the normal layman has come into picture in the last couple of years only. Now, if you consider that we were earlier panel were discussing about pharma and healthcare, how the IT has been taken care. So, in real sense, if you say that if you say tier 2 and tier 3 city, till now, whatever is available data, there was no concern as such about this healthcare. In healthcare, in a hospital division, this CIO or digital information officer has really got people come to know about that in the last couple of years. Now, when it comes to data privacy, there are a lot of data is available now. Now, if you see that with artificial intelligence, there are a lot of data is available, but how to save that? And the data privacy, that is going to play important role. So, personally, I feel that if you are having a good server and good people who can manage a full time, who can manage the server inside your hospital. But if you are having cloud based solution, then you should have to have a good partner. So now there is the importance of having a partner who can store or maybe who can help you out in data privacy also. So it is not only the government, because now with national data health mission, it's going to be, data is going to be important role, going to play important role. And along with that, this data privacy, unless and until some law come and it's mandatory for everyone, that now the HS platform also if you see across the hospital, that is not on a common platform. So even if you want to send data from one hospital to other also, you are not able to talk to each other because the software language is also different and this is not going to help us out anyway. So for the data privacy, some law definitely has to come where throughout the hospital, throughout India, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 city, there is a common platform where the data will get exchanged. And then and for all the data privacy, for cloud, it has to become cost effective, which is currently not there. So now what happens that down the line after 5 years, after this pandemic, we came across that everyone's thinking about insurance. So there will be an insurance for the patient who is going to pay for insurance, or maybe due to Ayushman Bharat. So these are the only two categories will remain after 5 years. So what is important here is that for this privacy, unless and until this cost-effective solution comes, we are not able to implement it throughout the hospital because everyone cannot afford that costing, and we cannot charge additional to patient also. So these are the important things has to be there. We come into consideration, and I'm sure for data privacy with good laws and with good partners, we are able to do that.
Sudhir, just taking you from what Mr. Nilesh has said, they are looking for partners who can provide affordable solutions for data privacy. Uh, but if I take that to a macro, uh, do you see that there are marriages happening between the hospital ecosystem and technology service providers that way, which was supposed to be, or you see that there's still a long way to go? Your thoughts on that?
So we believe that there's scope for improvement, large scope for improvement. And if you look into US markets or you look into the European markets, data privacy and such things are very stringent over there. So where we can bring in value is that the type of practices that we are seeing, in those markets, we could actually bring those learnings, that knowledge base into India, and help as a partner and an IT consultant in your journey to adopt some of these practices. So that's one area. Second is we're also seeing, like I talked about new technologies. It's difficult for a hospital to evaluate on their own and find out what works and what doesn't work. And that is where we bring in a lot of expertise on both the pros and cons of a new technology or a platform. So once you are sensitized about it, you're looking at the cost part of it also. Now, one of the things that Dell has always believed in is that technology has to be affordable. And when you make it affordable, you make it available to the masses. And that is where we are completely focused on. So we look forward to any partnership that we could have with the hospitals or with the authorities also, because we also talk about regulations coming in on those things. So we are open to that partnership, and we look forward to any help that we can do in India on any of these platforms. Doing technology adoption, doing data privacy. But like I said, there's a huge scope because things are very fluid. The pandemic has just taught us some basic lessons. We still have a lot to go ahead.
Not to go ahead as Sunil was saying, Srinivas, if I even come back to the other question of telemedicine, how do you think that during the pandemic, technology like telemedicine has changed the relationship between the caregiver and the patient? How this changed? Has it changed for good, or do you think again there are a lot of things can be done in terms of telemedicine transformation which can be seen in India?
You can see that during COVID, first in 2020, telemedicine was not so active. Because first phase when it came, no one was aware how to tackle this pandemic. Because if you see that in a hospital setup also, there's a clinical team and non-clinical team. Clinical team were aware that what is this pandemic is going to bring about. But what about non-clinical or technical people? They were not aware about what is this COVID pandemic is. So first maybe 6-7 months, it was basically everything is from management point of view. It was our duty to make sure that we should boost our morale of our technical, non-technical people, because that is very, very important challenge. Now, the question which you asked earlier was, what is the digital innovation? The small innovation which I came across is that, like we say that earlier we used to say SMS with short message services, but a simple message of SMS is like social distancing, mask, and sanitization. Now, how to reach to everyone? Because the kind of pandemic, what was the important thing was communication, coordination, and cooperation. Because if you see that there are a lot of data was available on WhatsApp. Every day some new circular used to come. There were a lot of questionnaires from every region was having different circular. And because of this easy data flow, everyone used to get that. But then what to follow? That is also was a question mark. So simple thing like you are having your own office hospital having your task force with the help of WhatsApp media. Like really it was a huge good way. And you can able to communicate fast with your entire team. So first 6-7 months it was like that to make sure that morale of your own team is get boosted so that they will able to fight. Because when we saying that the hospital, there are a lot of things are there behind the scenes, which is not be visible for anyone. Now, simple thing is that if you want to run the hospital, there are a lot of services are there. Now they will be run by the class 3 or class 4 people, or maybe some idea guy who will do the HVAC or from the electrical side. Now, moral boosting for them was very, very important. Your question was there, for everyone was there, if it happens COVID to them, what will happen? What will happen to their family? So whether they will be able to go home or not. So all these queries which were there, so now someone has to do the moral boosting, someone has to give some motivational talk. So it was possible with WhatsApp media or maybe digital innovation where you can have something on that on your web site. You will say as an intranet, you will send some information can reach to everyone. And then the time has come that everyone got a confidence that how to tackle with that. And then we realized that now first few months, obviously because patient or patient relative was not know how to come to hospital also. So they then found out that there is an option called telemedicine or telemotic. It was not there, it was not available earlier, it was there, but real booster has come in during the COVID. And when it comes to telemedicine, the first thing was that doctor or consultant has to be like a registered medical practitioner. So now he has to make sure that whether this patient is really required that he can able to consult that on telephonically or it's not possible. Because there are two options that someone can only telephonically get consult or certainly that physically only he has to consult that patient. So now that was the first question which was there, whether how to determine that, how to define that, whom to give teleconsultation. And once we do that, because you have to find out that consent has to be there because telemedicine laws were there and everyone was due to that and then the concern was that how to take the consent of the patient. Now there are two impact that it is directly communicating, he or she can directly communicating with the consultant, then it was okay, that is like implied consent. But like consultant wants to talk to them and give some information, then some type of consent which has to be recorded was a basic question called teleconsultation. Then similarly that what type, whether the patient is there in India or outside India. So then what type of consultation he can able to give? Whether this consultation is a repeat consultation or is a consultation which is that the first time it is happening. Then what type of prescription has to be given? So all these things were there, which were considering this teleconsultation. Yeah, that is a really good tool which was used during COVID. But if I see right now, the condition has changed. Because in India, we always feel that if we meet doctor 1:1, everyone feels more happier when they are having some issue. If you see also in digital way, we are going ahead, revolution is going to happen. But if someone is there in the hospital and if patient relative is accompanying them, then he always like to carry his CT, MRI, all the reports with them. And then he always feels that I have done something for the patient. And he always like to carry that bag along with him throughout the hospital. But if you give him just a small CD, he will feel there is something in this. Because this is the Indian mentality. And I'm sure medicine and what is going to play important role, but still in India, the personal touch for the doctor and the patient is very, very important.
Yes, that's important. As Sudhir was also saying that in India, in a country like India, you always need a triggering to act on something. I think, as you have rightly said, telemedicine has been in India for many years, but it has not been used like the way it has been used in the last 2 years. I'll come to Mr. Dr. Malik. Dr. Malik, I can see 2 3 questions coming from audience. Ask one of them to you. One question I can see is that how are the healthcare providers integrating with the insurance providers as that impacts accessibility? Your take on that. Integrate.
I see lots of online platforms are now available where your whole insurance workflow, right from the time your insurance patient walks in, he sees a doctor, he advises surgery, and then he has to go for pre-authorization. Right from that step to his admission to his discharge, the platform takes care of everything. The whole communication is platform driven, right? So most of the hospitals, including ours, we use one of those platforms, and they have become quite mature. These platforms appeared in India just for probably half a decade ago, and now many of these we call them the Arsene Fashion or the facility management platforms, and they've become pretty mature. And so you really don't have to worry about the quality of that manual guy who is sitting there. So the platform that we use, um, uh, uh, the whole pre-authorization is done, it's idiot. So you don't have to worry about the quality of the person who is handling the pre-authorization. One guy may be good, another guy may be bad. But then the platform guides them, the guy, you got to do this. And then after that, the pre-authorization comes. The patient gets admitted, or once the bill is finalized, the guy gets charged. The invoice is handed to the platform. Invoice to the insurance company. When your billing guy prepares the invoice, the platform checks whether the invoice is in order. Every insurance company, every payer has its own requirements. I need 2 copies of this, I need 2 copies of this, I need a copy of this, I need a copy of that, otherwise I'll return it. So they have pair-wise checklists by which they will check whether the invoice is correct. And if there is anything missing, they will go back, no, sorry, the following 4 documents are also required. Then only the invoice can be processed successfully. The invoice goes to them, they will chase the insurance company also on your behalf that this invoice is unpaid. They will start chasing after the minimum time period is elapsed. So, and they do it for the storing and billing platforms. They do it for a fixed fee of a couple of hundred rupees per patient, right? So that has been a change in the last 5 years.
If I may ask you that, what kind of change you're anticipating for coming 5 years or 10 years when we talk about the improving patient care, especially leveraging more and more technology innovation. So your thoughts on that?
Most important change that must come, that has to come, without which nothing will happen. Like my friend from Dell, he said they are doing AI. Now, AI and ML need, as he very rightly agreed, that you need large data sets to do AI ML to do AI ML properly, to get the right kind of outputs from it. Now, where are those data sets going to come? Are they going to come from the case sheets, from the paper case sheets? They can, right? It will be very, very expensive and very, very time consuming. They have to come from your EHR systems. Where are the EHR systems in India? This is the one thing where all administrators, all technology companies, the government needs to get involved. Unless you have EHR adoption, quality EHR adoption, at a large scale, nothing is going to happen. Trust me, nothing is going to happen. We'll just keep on meeting and talking, and we'll keep on hoping that something will happen, right? The government did the right first thing, they published the EHR standards. So this is the Indian EHR standard version 1, version 2, I believe version 3 is going to come out. But after that, the next follow-up step is, I was always hoping next year they are going to mandate it. Next year they are going to mandate it. In a couple of years they will be mandated. Not yet happened.
So I think the mandating of EHR by the government will be the most important thing according to you.
Yeah, it's a carrot and stick. They don't mandate. They say, okay, you do it, so I will reward you. You will get 10% extra payment or 5% extra payment. If you don't do it, if you send me manual records, I will dock 5%. That's how NABH will work, right? Even today, why do hospitals run for NABH? Not because hospitals are interested in quality. Sorry. Hospitals are interested in NABH just because they get that extra percentage of payment.
Really please. So Neeraj, your thoughts on the future?
Definitely, I feel that we need to change our mindset. Okay, things will happen, may not be immediate. India, nothing happens very fast. So slowly, but steadily, I'm sure it will happen. Now, artificial intelligence, currently, you can see that in most of the medical equipment it has come. CT, MR, I have seen in oncology, also radiation oncology, artificial intelligence come. But the only thing that till so many years we were having a lot of data, but we never understood the meaning of storing that data. So unfortunately, we don't have data. So now the data which is available is currently from US or maybe from the European countries. But now we understood the importance of data and we started storing that data. So down the line after 5 years, this artificial intelligence is going to make a boom in India. Time will come, but I'm sure it will make a difference. Along with that, we see the robotic surgery, which is currently we are using in our hospitals also. And it is making a difference because for patient, the outcome has improved, cost is same. So for patient, is always benefited. So those small things definitely will going to make a difference in the healthcare deliverables. And the gap which we are seeing that now, importance of the critical care center or EICU, which has come up. Because if you see that there was no facility available during COVID, you are seeing a real ICU facility available in tier 2 or tier 3 cities. time will come. Now everyone understood at least what can go wrong. Now, if you see that in India we face there is a lack of oxygen also is not available. Now everyone understood. Most of the places we have seen that the oxygen plants have been created. Now similarly, this EICU also, because currently if you see the ratio of the consultant and the patient, is a ICU consultant patient, so huge gap is there. But concern like EICU, where sitting at one command center, if you can able to connect this ICU, and as I told just now also, if all these hospital providers, if you get the right a partner to do this all this technology evolution, things will definitely is going to improve. Because reason is that when we do all these things, everyone is having in their mind what about data privacy, how the infrastructure will be there, how we are going to transfer the data which is available multiple ports. So good partners are going to make a difference, which will really boost the confidence. I'm not talking about few hospitals who can able to do it. I'm talking about entire India. When we say entire India, that multiple booster, those the way we give it, the similarly is required now from technology provider to all these healthcare providers. And I'm sure India in digitally definitely there will be transformation there. Only thing mindset has to change. So how much I'm going to adopt or we are going to adopt in healthcare is going to make our future. So this COVID pandemic has taught us a lesson for everyone. So it is a beginning, but it will happen. Because in India, everything happens on the direct leadership. So still we are hopeful that things will improve.
Let's hope for the best, Mr. Shinde. Sudhir, now you take on the future collaboration opportunities between industry and the hospital administrations or government, especially when we are talking about transforming healthcare through technological innovation. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I started off saying, that you being active in certain, areas. Uh, what it also means is the government coming in and bringing in a platform is something that will help everyone. Uh, Technology is available. It's important that partners like us collaborate jointly with hospitals, also healthcare professionals. In terms of giving them the right view, a simple thing like sir mentioned, was about adoption of cloud or on-premises, making that choice of where your infrastructure should lie, what technology platform should you adopt, and what is the adoption curve where you should get onto it. That is also very important. And where do you see the ROI or the TCO by doing the technology adoption? So this is something where I believe it will revolutionize us. It will take a couple of years because we have just started on that journey. But the good thing is the pandemic has actually brought us onto the map. So I believe technology can be very, very revolutionary with all the digital adoption. While we are being reactive, there's a lot of things that we can do being predictive, and that's where these technologies will help us. AIML, talking about augmented reality or augmented reality. It's about enabling that potential that we are not unlocking today. That's where it will help us. And I see technology being a major enabler. So if you look at most industries today, and I'm just giving an example, banking and finance for an example. Today technology plays a major role there. The CIO is a part of the business plans actually. So that's where we believe technology will do the healthcare industry also. We look forward to partnering with each one of you, be it the industry, be it the hospitals, be it the healthcare professionals, in terms of bringing knowledge base, in terms of bringing expertise, and the IT consultancy part of it also, which can enable your business. So long way to go, but it's a great start that we have actually.
Right, right. So if I take a crux of what has been discussed for last 45 minutes or so, one thing is that Dr. Malik has said in the beginning that there are a lot of things needs to be done from the government end. Hospitals also have to do a lot of things to create that kind of effective ecosystem. As Mr. Dilesh was saying that things are happening, but a lot of things needs to be done because the mindset has to be changed if we have to embrace technology in much more efficient way. And as Sudhir Nair was saying that transformation is happening and today or tomorrow we have to embrace emerging technologies and for various aspects of technology and making that partnership, the collaboration of users there. So that brings us to the end of this panel discussion on accelerating patient-centric transformation. And we again thank Dr. Alok Malik, who is CEO of hospitals, Mr. Sunil Nair, Senior Manager, CHG Sales Enterprise, Health Technologies, and Mr. Nilesh Shinde, Group Chief Technical Officer, for joining us today. I request consulting network Mr. Rajveer to come on stage and yeah, sure.
See, technologically, most industries in India and overseas, they are much more mature than the Indian industry. And this maturity is measured by your spend on technology as a percentage of the revenue. Most mature industries, let's say manufacturing, they would agree with me. They would spend about 4 to 5% of their revenue. Most hospitals will spend 0.5% of their revenue. Why I keep asking the government? It is not that the government spend money. Government has to mandate by legislation. When it is mandated by legislation, it's not that the hospitals cannot spend that money. They can spend that money, but they are unwilling to spend that money because today they don't have this monkey sitting on their head. Oh, if I don't do this, I will be penalized. Right? The technology is available. The adoption push is not available. That's the adoption. They are unwilling to commit even 2.5% of the revenue for technology. That is the basic problem.
As insightful as ever, Dr. Malik. Thank you so much. And on this note, I request Mr. Rajveer to come on stage and hand over the service to our esteemed speakers. We can start with Dr. Malik, Group CEO of Omni Hospitals. A huge round of applause for him. To Mr. Nilesh Shinde, Group Chief Technical Officer, Jupiter Hospital. To Mr. Sudhir Nair, Senior Manager, CHG Sales Enterprise, Health Technologies. You can have a group photo, but please you can also. So that was a panel on accelerating patient-centric transformation and innovation in healthcare. With this, we move to the next panel discussion on Indian diagnostic sector, diving deep into digital technologies. The way forward, I request Rajnish to be on stage because he will be playing the role of moderator. And speakers for these sessions will be announced by Rajnish Dey. Over to you, Rajnish.
I did this for 5 years.
Sorry. For the session on one very important aspect of diagnostic and which especially we saw the transformation and importance of this sector in the last couple of years during the pandemic. This is one diagnostic. So for the session, I would like to invite the panelists on stage. It gives me immense pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, Professor and Head of Microbiology, D.Y. Patil University, School of Medicine, Hospital and Research Center. And we have Dr. Chaudhary. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Aruna Pujari, Head of Department Pathology and Microbiology at Bridge Candy Hospital Trust. Dr. Pujari. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Barnali Das, Consultant Laboratory Medicine, Kopilabed Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Barnali.
फास्ट चार्ज होता है 15 मिनट में
So, as I mentioned, while diagnostics has always been there, but in the last couple of years during the pandemic, we have seen a paradigm change in how diagnostics has been looked after and can we say implemented and deployed on the ground in India. Three aspects which in this discussion I would like to focus. One, integration of different components, the apps, the QR codes, online reporting, and how we would like to talk more on the lot of things how technology helps in this aspect. And the third was ultimately if the right report doesn't reach the patient on time, the whole purpose of digitization of diagnostics gets lost. So, how that has helped, and though I know all three of you are representing hospitals, but I'd like to understand even from your experience, there are diagnostic chains separately, independent diagnostic centers, and diagnostic connected with the hospital. Are there any fundamental dynamic differences, especially in the last couple of years, when a lot of these COVID control collection has been happening in such a large extent? So, have you seen any change between the two? So, I would like to start with Chaudhary. My first question is integrating these different components. How has been the challenge and how successfully it has been done?
Namaskar. There are definite advantages, or what we could call it as a spin-off of the pandemic which has occurred, and really a devastating pandemic. It has taught lesson to people across the board, poor, rich, in countries which are poor countries and rich countries, everywhere. It's a pandemic in two senses. And that has taken by surprise, although the world was not really ready, but then some efforts were there in all countries, connecting dots was required, and it happened. So although we say that how is the response? The response is satisfactory. It could have been definitely better if we are better prepared, or we continue to be prepared. So preparedness is the key. Last few years ago, we had swine flu, then we had this pandemic, and there are a couple of people, if you go to the literature around the information that is going around, you'll find that across the world there are people who are trying to get advantage of the research that is there. So the gain of function research is one such area where people are trying to have research for their personal gains or gains of individuals. Barring those efforts, I would definitely say that this pandemic has definitely united people, definitely connected the dots, and we have used those technologies, digital technologies in particular, to the advantage in patient care, in surveillance activities, in diagnostic activities individually. It has helped in epidemiological surveillance, it has helped in monitoring the pandemic, it has helped in other than health sectors also, like how we are going to have the lockdown and no lockdown, the restriction of movements, the travel related restriction, all those. And suddenly the technology has helped in terms of the digital technology in communicating with other sectors. So that if someone is having a diagnosis or a disease or an infection, then definitely be communicated across so that there is rather restriction on the movements of people concerned in the form of smaller lockdowns or bigger lockdowns or whatever. This has been possible because of rapid diagnostics, what we say point of care testing, the standardization of technology, particularly we find that in terms of the availability, many medical colleges were compulsorily made to be prepared for molecular testing. And this has definitely boosted across the country in terms of the technology which has been made. Although there are definitely additions in the private sector also, new technologies have been added, all that has been standardized, and this is definitely a positive way of looking at it that this has done. Definitely it is going to be more and more as we move on. I think you could have some.
This integration of how
So, initially, certainly there was such an overwhelming amount of samples and tests and how to interpret them, So, I think everybody was confused about how to interpret a test, what sample to be taken, when is it to be taken, how many times it is to be taken. And all of that initially created so much of confusion and panic. And in fact, as we went on, things settled down a bit because there were better guidelines that were put forward. The testing also was streamlined. We had more availability of tests. As Sir said, medical colleges were made to improvise and made to have facilities where PCR testing could be done. So PCR testing, I must inform the audience that is not something which was a simple way to test. It was always supposed to be a high-end kind of a testing, a very specialized setup requiring testing. And suddenly with the pandemic, all these things changed. Many more laboratories, even the smaller ones, got capacity to actually perform PCR testing, and they were all NABL accredited. So I think that was definitely a very big task that happened. So the moment NABL comes in, there is assurance, there is quality, there is standard that is there. So I think initially maybe we were confused, overwhelmed. Of course, the peaks always overwhelmed us. The laboratories were always overwhelmed during the peak times. But we took it in our stride, and I think we've moved ahead, and we are preparing for the future.
Thank you. Standardization. How long it took? Because that's where the critical thing is. So how long did it take, and what were the challenges that you faced on the way?
Yes, the first, like Dr. Aruna said, the health equity is major challenge in India. We face prior to COVID, we can say prior COVID era and COVID era, and maybe we are going towards COVID, post COVID. So before that, technology, digitalization, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, were very these words were not very familiar to us, the healthcare or diagnostic industry. But what we understood during this COVID time, that we realized the role of how clinical decision support, how all this implementation of IoT or AI or machine learning or deep learning based neural network or algorithm or model, how it can transform our life. Is how remote monitoring is possible. Someone maybe during the initial time we realize we are in Mumbai, we are doing our RT-PCR. They want to start that accreditation and want to start this process. So to help them by remote monitoring, the health equity has actually transformed. With this digital transformation has made social transformation. This is the main roadmap. Even now we don't know the roadmap. Maybe another wave will come, or maybe we are going towards post-COVID era. But we realize that we are able to overcome this. Although initially it was overwhelming, second wave was overwhelming, But we realize that we are not now working in silos. Initially, all of us, like diagnostic sector working in silos, then clinicians working in silos, IVD manufacturer working in silos, the Dell and other technology like Intel and all, like all those platforms, they were working in silos. And even the accreditation, like Dr. Aruna saying about NABL, College of American Pathologies, ICMR, all of us were not integrated or there were no collaborative approach. So we were really overwhelmed, but now this pandemic taught us how to integrate all the stakeholders. And now we are the main challenge which were there that we were working in silos. So we are working together. And we want to develop strong support system for to face any pandemic in future.
No, here the challenge was not only diagnosis. Diagnosis was one important aspect of it, but as the disease progression, the monitoring of the disease progression, that also was an important issue, and that was successfully tackled through the technologies, the digital technologies which were added. In addition to that, when the vaccine came in, now really is it effective or not? There are different types, and then this. And people started talking about it. The lay people talking about RT-PCR, lay people talking about what is your number, what is the level of your antibodies, how long you are going to. So this is something which, and then people started talking about the variants of virus and all. So people in general are so much educated with the social media that they become, we wonder, there are so many virologists in the country, as a social virologist also. So this is something which is a negative side of that propaganda that could be there. And people have been using that to their advantage or to show that they are well ahead of the time in which it will be there. So what is important is that networking with the different groups of people or the apps that were developed. It was something amazing. It's not only the diagnostic, the diagnostic technology developed, different methodologies came in, where whether it is useful or not is, that subsequently developed. Whether nasal swab is better or oral swab is better or saliva is better, all those are the things which are going to be evolving all the time. What is the best technology, methodology? But all these are going to be definitely advancing as the days pass, and we are better prepared. The moment some monkeypox news came in, people have already started talking about how do we procure the things, how we are. I mean, there are concerns as well as there are some opportunities that may be developed so as to have advancement in terms of the availability of diagnostic methods. Thank you.
So, two areas I would like to pick up from here. One, this remote access, which we are talking about. Now, in a country like India, the demographics are different. Some of the larger hospitals are present in the metro, but when we go to the hinterland, then, as Dr. Banali mentioned, the example that someone in Leh or Pune is also so the accessibility is definitely not a uniform standard across the country. So there, this remote access challenge, especially in diagnosis, how are you looking at mitigating that challenge? And the second is one call-out has been a lot of these home sample, the sample collection from home have become prevalent. Now, ultimately, if I may say, use the word authenticity, or if I may say that the sample itself, the sanctity of the sample itself might get compromised from home collection. And that will completely lead to false results. So, there again, how that is increasingly being taken care of in this remote mode. Yes.
Definitely, this is a challenge, and as we see, when we have a big batch processing as the need arises. There are unitary or a few sample processing also is required. Fortunately, the quality aspect of this is taken care of when some test kits are or IVDs are authorized, licensed for use. Now, this is definitely there is a built-in quality system which says that whether the sample has been received properly or not. Is it eligible for testing or not? So, in other words, there are many people when we say that the sample collection was hazard, in the sense somebody asked to open the mouth and the swab was turned around and it has touched somewhere. But ultimately, whether the test is valid or not is built in that system itself. So if that system is saying no, the test is not validated, that particular sample is not validated, there is no reason why we should not believe that. So definitely, the standardization which is required has been taken care of, and definitely that is not a major concern. Although we find that there are variabilities, it's a biological sample, there are variabilities with the test kits also, and definitely it is not 100% as such. There could be some variations that are possible, and that is why maybe the time of collection is itself an important variable which has to be taken in mind. So it's not that every sample is going to be advantageous or giving a definite diagnostic.
Thanks. Yes.
I want to add here, like, this is the struggle or challenge worldwide. Being the scientific division of Executive Committee of International Federation of Clinical Chemistry and Lab Medicine, like since long 20 years, like we are trying to standardize and harmonize all the lab tests, not only the microbial RT-PCR current pandemic, but all the lab tests. Like for example, during the COVID time, one small example of interleukin 6. Interleukin 6, we had in WhatsApp and all, we were facing a lot of query. Like certain lab has reported interleukin 6 of 3,000, and the same patient got admitted an afternoon when he got admitted, so he from the hospital lab, the value was 6. So how can it possible? So like sample integrity is issue. It's not only in India, it's issue all over the world, and sample, because of that, the role of the lab physician or the diagnostician. So to standardize or harmonize this chain from where the sample is collected and how the sample is transported. So then comes the role of this digital technology like data logger and all those RFID codes and everything. So with these IoT devices, so if temperature monitoring and everything is very much important, because the moment there is any query or going for the prevention, like so that there is the samples are immediately processed. Samples are not kept in room temperature for samples like interleukin 6 or PTH or other biomarkers. So because of that, yes, these are challenges, and these are challenges not new. These are pre-analytical challenges in lab is the most common, and around 70% we see the pre-analytical errors.
Yes.
Things actually, meaning quality control processes in the laboratory start right from the pre-analytical steps, pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical. And I think it's the business or the ethics of the laboratory to ensure that we follow all those processes right from the point where we pick up the samples. Me being from the hospital setup, certainly I may not be, picking up samples from far and wide, but certainly the large diagnostic chains that are present in India, or rather have presence all over India. In fact, I think we should commend their presence for being in even the smallest of areas in India, where accessibility was important. For the pandemic, this accessibility was important, and I think we also learned that this accessibility needs to continue. So healthcare access should be to everyone. Similarly, diagnostic access should be to everyone. So it is inbuilt within the ethics of the whatever institution that you pick up a sample to ensure that the temperature is maintained, the quality of the sample is maintained for us to come and test in the laboratory. So that's something very, very important and integral to how we work.
One more part, I think morning one of the panelists mentioned the mentality of Indian patients. We stick with the whole march of hacker. Otherwise, we
Right.
so that not being done. So now, when we are going sorry, it will just be an online report that is coming. So my question is, how have we been able to sort of make the Indian patients more aware about digitally accepting diagnostic reports, and it's not just in terms of um, scanning the QR codes or making online payments, but first properly believing that the report itself, the investigation report itself is accurate.
I'll just add one or two points here. First and foremost is as a learned person who is patient, the diagnostic, the reports which are made from the lab, etc., they never are directly for the purpose of understanding or interpretation of an individual patient. It is generally through the clinician who has ordered those tests. So in those terms, I would like to separate it out that patient lab reports and person's lab report. Person in the sense health. So if it is a health kind of testing where you say that okay, it is kind of preventive testing. I want to know whether I'm healthy or not. I've been practicing for yoga or some of the exercises I do, some dietary changes I do, and my cholesterol is less or it is fluctuating. Now those self-ordered things or people that definitely increases the need or that increases the use of laboratories or the chains of laboratory. But that interpretation part is left with that individual, or there could be some additional information in terms of the lab advising the patients or some groups that okay, you need to get into a proper advice from the clinician or something. You need to take care of these things because normally it is a sample given and the values received by the individuals. And in terms of the digital or the reports which are there, people, I mean, definitely should use that. But although they are when they are asking for the report or testing, I would just say that they should go for an NABL accredited lab. If they go for accredited lab, there are less chances that their values are being true to what are there, the accuracy wise. And of course, that would be something which. But this interpretation part is very interesting. And for patient reports, the clinicians are advising them and they are interpreting them. But for health kind of checkups, that needs to be taken with caution because the standards which are used are not definitely developed for the Indian population as such. And wherever there is a red line or red kind of letters being used, underlining that they are more significant or they are deviation from the normal range that is acceptable. So these are the issues which people will definitely have to take care when they are asking for the reports.
Actually, there is paradigm shift. Like if you see this, like Sir said about the health checkup and all. Like recently we had like one of cases where their sudden cardiac death is so common. We have seen post-COVID also, and many times maybe a marathon runner or during the gym when we lost some known faculty. So because of that, all those risk stratification platform, risk stratification with the help of like deep learning based method or machine learning, it became now very prominent. And this is one of the feature like cardiac leads like AI CBD. We had one of the flagship project of AI artificial intelligence for cardiac risk factor, and there we realize like with our kind of setup also, when we have monitored through AI or deep learning based algorithm, we have seen 14% increase in patient, female patients for acute myocardial infarction detection. So because of that, this stratification, like previous panel, Dr. Malik was saying, EHR, like electronic health record, how it is important, like NHS, EHR is so important for accessibility, like Dr. Aruna said. So that's actually we are this National Digital Health Mission or ABHA number. I think we are going towards that Ayushman Bharat account number. We are going towards that. With that, suppose any of the cities, someone is accessing healthcare. If we get the health record of the full, like how does he ever have the cardiac events or anything, so and that will actually change the scenario, I think, for the risk stratification mainly. So like NHS and other platforms, we are going towards that.
Basically, meaning one thing is one thing that I'd like to stress here is we don't treat. I think the public needs to know we don't treat reports. It's individuals that we treat. So there is no point in just having a report in hand and there is no clinical correlation. I think that is basic to interpreting any kind of diagnostic report. The second thing is when we talk about why people still want paper, I think we still have a long way to go. Though the COVID pandemic has done a lot of good because people were fearing to handle paper at one point in time. So I think that was true, frankly speaking. Why should you unnecessarily handle paper? There are many other collateral, probably advantages to not having so much of paper. But that remains true. There are a lot of infectious diseases that get transmitted, particularly if that paper is contaminated with wet secretion. So it still holds true. I think that's another thing that we need to harp upon. And the third thing about the EHR that Madam mentioned also, I can give you an example of the Nikshay app, which is an Indian tuberculosis central government app where all of us put data of culture positive. So if I have a patient who was, let's say, in Bihar and enrolled into that particular Nikshay app, maybe 6 months or 8 months or 10 months ago, now the patient has come to me and I again grow NTB or tubercle bacilli in my hospital and I got to add his data. I get that data, the previous data, I am able to access it. That's really good. So people will eventually realize that centralizing this kind of, digitization of reports is going to help them rather than, carry through heavy files eventually. I'm sure I'm very optimistic about that.
But what about here you're talking about since you would be collecting and maintaining that data, the issue of privacy and sanctity of the data, how would you
Yes,
security of the
that's
data?
that's something which is very very important to us, and most of the developed world have very strict data privacy laws. And the previous panel was also discussing this. I think I'm not an expert, but this is naturally a matter of concern. I don't want any of my fine reports to be figuring out on Google. I've seen that and been very, very worried and concerned. So that's certainly an issue that probably our technology partners need to support us with.
I think tomorrow, like open source API and all, like everyone is going for. So with open source API and with help of the digital technology partner, I think we are going to. Although data security is a problem, but innovation comes with certain regulations, but with many regulations prevent innovation. So self-regulation is the key. So when we had lot of high velocity data, so implementation of that data in proper way or open source API will actually is the need of the hour. Like that can really help the diagnostic sector and healthcare sector.
So, for the overall diagnostic sector, if we do a little bit of crystal ball gazing, what do you think? See, we might be in a post-COVID phase, and this might not occur to that extent again, like the first and second wave. But there can be other infectious diseases and similar situations might arise. In that, keeping in mind that context, and if we do a little bit of crystal ball gazing, what will be the way you would like the diagnostic sector to shape up in the future, and what would be the priority focus areas?
Chaudhary and Dr. Aruna will better answer, but we have seen during the pandemic, like mathematical modeling, like STAR model and Sutra model, if you say pandemic models, that really helped, especially Sutra model, if you say, that have helped us, all those predictive models, and like South Africa, when there was a surge, so they have predicted with those kind of models. So pandemic models really helped us, and in the future also, I think Dr. Aruna and Dr. Chaudhary should give more insights.
This kind of fear is the key. If you go in the past 3 to 4 decades, all the new emerging and re-emerging infections have been of almost 60-70% are zoonotic origin, and they are viral etiology. So it is a viral zoonosis which is coming from animals and human beings, and we need to be very um, good about understanding what are the interfaces which are likely to be there. And in addition to that, there are people who are trying to, mislead or get undue advantage of their preparedness or little ahead of the world about the technologies and trying to misuse them. So this is something which is, really fearful. But if we go by the response of Indian or rather Oriental population, I would say, the Eastern world and the Western world, you definitely find that the traditional ways of health, about the sanitation, definitely have help in them. Although it is very bold statement, I would say, but because there are no authentic reports or what we say evidence-based statements. But these are the things which speak for themselves. You talk about outcome-based, and then definitely these are the speculations or these are the reasoning by which it could be there. So we have something which we have to improve on things as a social group. Individually, we want to be very clean and all that, but socially also we need to have some more etiquettes developed and some more standard practices to be used so as to avoid respiratory. Now, the new possible developments or the biological warfare to inverted commas, I would put it, that this is something which we have to be aware of, and we have to be really vigilant about the things which are there. Now, what do we do as a routine? As a routine, we follow the practices which are healthy practices, traditional practices, as we see, that is one part. Secondly, maintain the health. Healthy person, I mean, as a preventive measure, my teacher is here, he would also, telling, health promotion is the most important activity, and we neglect that. So health promotion, if it is being achieved, well, we take care of it. We have those traditional knowledge, we have to make use of it, and definitely the new modern technology, the digital, the AI, and all those things are definitely going to aid or add to our advantage.
Definitely, predictive statistical modeling needs to be strengthened. In fact, it's not only to do with re-emerging zoonotic infections, as Sir has said. A lot of other pandemics are currently going on, and I'd like to draw the attention of the House to another pandemic that, in fact, we are sitting on, that is antimicrobial resistance. And fresh data, which was recently published in the Lancet, is through predictive modeling has got data from areas where there is absolutely no data, and they said that almost 1.27 million people died in 2019 because of AMR, that is antimicrobial resistance. So we have to really strongly build on statistical predictive modeling. The second thing is, I think we need multidisciplinary research and collaboration. I think at least India, we grossly lack on that. There is no dearth of probably mind and money. I don't believe it. There is no dearth of mind and money, and yet this mind and money don't seem to be coming together to collaborate, whether it's clinical, whether it's academia, whether it's industry. Why can't the mind be supported to develop something which is a POC and will be used by a whole lot of masses? So I think these two are key. We need to collaborate and to invest in research. The previous panel talked about, Dr. Malik, I think, talked about investing back into research, and I think we are not investing enough in research. If we don't do that, we are not going to look forward and ever be prepared for another pandemic or any kind of disaster that's awaiting us in the coming years. So these are two important points that we need to take care of.
Okay.
Absolutely here, like I want to acknowledge, like when we started our projects with IIT Bombay, KCBA, so we realized like role of digital technology, how it can transform our data, like with those high velocity data, maybe 12 billion data, how that can transform into like electronic medical record or alert. Like we did some project with AKI alert, acute kidney injury, and we realized how it can transform, and there is paradigm shift in understanding the data and utilization. Data utilization is very important, and for that we need collaboration.
Keeping the collaboration thing in mind, I'll go to a question which is less of technology, more of business aspect. One, again, you are representing hospitals here, but we talked about a lot of these large chains of diagnostic centers across the country, and often they are doing women's work, especially in remote areas. So, collaboration when we are concerned, how successfully can there be a collaboration in business models of the hospitals and these third-party diagnostic centers? That is one. And another challenging aspect, what we have seen recently, a lot of these apps are coming up and they tie up to the diagnostic centers, and often there are, I don't know, but they look, recently there has been one of these apps talking about you can do the test in anywhere, and they are showing in anywhere, literally anywhere. So, how is the, if I may say, the medical integrity of such claims, and how can the diagnostic centers work with these apps? So, yes, sir.
Yeah, as it has been mentioned earlier also, the standardization or accreditation is the key. There are hundreds and thousands of labs, individuals, qualified pathologists, microbiologists, biochemists, and there are technical people, technicians rather, opening up the things and all that. So this needs to be really standardized, and standardized in the sense that, okay, it doesn't come overnight. It has to be with proper regulations, curtailed, and then they can be networked together. So it is not only the availability of any lab, but a standard lab. So only when these standard labs or the accredited labs network, then only there is authenticity, there is reliability, there is all additional things which we would say that they are good lab practices which are being followed there, and the results that we get. It is like garbage in and garbage out. If you are using third-rate methods, if you are not collecting the things properly, whatever the results are going, they cannot be reliable. So it is that is the key, and this is the reliability will come only when there is a third-party accreditation, like in NABL. So definitely, 20 years down the line, if you see hardly 10 labs were there. Now we see more than 1,000 labs are there which are accredited. So whether it is a collection center or a full-fledged lab, if they are under accreditation by third parties, definitely this is a base or foundation on which we can build reliable networks for healthcare in diagnostic sector. And this is always going to be adjunct, but a reliable system wherein this would be going. And if this is so, then over a period of time, with electronic records which are there, you can have your own record how you are doing better in terms of health, or it is going to be worsening. So all these things, or it is stable, all these things are possible only when you are comparing. So such apps are also going to be useful, which will correlate or which will have that linkage of your own reports 10 years before, 5 years before, and today. So that is how periodically you can judge the decline or betterment in your own health.
Exactly, a revolutionary idea that you are talking about, Dr. Runa.
I think it concerns me to see so many widespread apps sprouting out, and really it concerns me with respect to the quality that you also raised concern about. And unless they are really networked with accredited labs, as Sir has said, there is a problem. But from this, meaning why have these come out is also an important thing for us to kind of ponder or think about. There is need for us to penetrate into the far and wide sections. So that need is going to probably in future develop into a better system. So while this concerns me now, I'm hoping that in future, as institutions or maybe even standalone laboratories, we will be able to address this issue by collaborating with technology and trying to reach to the farthest. I think that's what is the key. Access to diagnostics for everyone.
Yes. Democratization of
Like this app has pros and cons, as Sarah Madam mentioned. Like we realize I am part of the COVID task force, international and national. So we realized during the second wave how this access to remotest area, or like I was communicating with someone in Tripura. Tripura, so that healthcare access, even the resource or supply chain management. So how it is important. Like we may be working in certain lab or hospital, but sometimes during this kind of situation, we all become together as a society. And like I told, digital transformation during the pandemic is social transformation. So actually during the being in the task force, I realized how everyone, it's not like only the medical fraternity, all the fraternity, how came together and this collaborative approach helped a lot for this health equity and health access.
I just want to know how many of you who are here, when there is a call or when they ask for, okay, you would like to go for health checkup or the lab reports, etc., we insist on it as whether it is a NABL accredited lab or not. Or we go by the values which are mentioned, 1000 rupees and 75 tests, 84 tests and all that. Do we really check whether it is accredited lab or not? Because it matters very much. Accredited lab charging for say 1500 and non-accredited giving 1000 rupees. So where is the basis for belief? How do we get that into real values?
Exactly. So, in fact, to sum it up, the discussion, this accreditation of all the labs and the standardization, so that the accreditation obviously gives a sort of sanctity to the whole process, and standardization is definitely required. Then we talked about the social transformation accompanying the digital transformation, and then obviously that even the standalone third-party diagnostic centers have also done human service by reaching up to the hinterlands and stuff. So, great for paucity of time, we can't continue with this discussion. Very interesting point. So, before we conclude, I'd like to invite Ms. Sanghamitra Mahanti, co-founder of APAC News Network, to hand over the leadership recognition to the panelists here. session, I'd like to request Naveen to come.
So this session is all about increasing accessibility, affordability, and improving outcomes for healthcare transformation. And for that, we have leaders from the hospital ecosystem of the country here with us. So let me invite Dr. Deepak Patkar, Director, Medical Services and Head, Department of Imaging, Nanavati Max Super Specialty Hospital. Dr. Deepak, you welcome yourself. We have with us Mr. Muktesh Narora, Associate Director of Pinnacle Teleservices Private Limited. If you can come on stage, please. A good round of applause for him. We have with us Dr. Kunal Punamia, CEO, SL Raheja Hospital of Fortis Associate. Dr. Kunal, if you can come on stage, please. We have with us Dr. Neeraj Uttamani, Medical Superintendent, Leelavati Hospital and Service Center. We have with us Dr. Sandeep Gore, Director, Emergency Medicine, Fortis Hospital, Mulund. We have with us Dr. Shrikant Sapatnekar, Medical Director, Godrej Memorial Hospital. And we have with us Dr. Alvin Sigamani, Chief Scientific Officer of Human Health. I think everybody is here. I think Mr. Dr. Alvin Sigamani is missing. Is he here? I think he was here. If he can, I'll ask my colleague Neha to speak to Dr. Alvin Sigamani. If he can join us on stage, please. So hi and welcome on to a very prestigious session, and I'm sure the insights which we'll be getting out of this session will be helpful for all of us to move in the right direction, because the ideas, insights we get from the leaders of the hospital ecosystem of this part of the country will definitely help us. So let me start with Dr. Deepak Patkar. Dr. Patkar, accessibility of quality healthcare and providing a quality, sustainable ecosystem have often proved counterproductive. How are hospitals looking at improving accessibility and affordability while remaining sustainable at the same time? I think it's a two-edged sword kind of a question, but if you can put some light on that, please.
They are exactly opposite things, and to get them together is a big challenge. And all of us sitting here are working on it throughout the day. So when we work for 10 hours a day, this is what we are actually trying to achieve. So every staff that we use, and medicine is a very labor-intensive and capital-intensive program. So you want the best doctors, you want the best nurses, you want best administrators, and they come at a cost. Medicine is fast evolving. We just saw in the last session how much of digitization is happening, how much of capital-intensive the new equipments are. And patient, when he comes in the hospital, he wants the best at the least cost. That has been the mentality. People think that doctors should not earn, hospitals should not earn. And with technology changing so fast and the investments that go into it, it's becoming extremely difficult. A lot of people, including government, private sector, private hospital, chains of hospital are working on this. As I said, you want the best doctors, you want best equipment, you want best administrators to run it. There are several ways that we can cut the cost. And we did that during COVID time. All of us were hit by COVID and nobody knew how to handle these things. Government set up hospitals in 10 days. We changed very quickly. So there are 3 or 4 broad categories where we can work on. One is average length of stay. The concept of average length of stay was not very present in India.
So when it is controlled by, say, government like NHS in UK, or the healthcare is controlled by insurance companies like in USA, people look at trying to minimize the admissions because that is the highest cost. So you try to do hip or knee replacements in 2 days. You do cholecystectomy, try to do it in 1 day, have daycares. So that is one area where we need to work on. Second is increase the productivity of your own staff. So as I said, all of us are very, very labor intensive. So how to get maximum work out of doctors, nurses in the given time? How to increase their productivity? So digital health in that sense will really help us on that. So there are several things that we do through the day, whether you are a doctor or a nurse. If that can be reduced or multiplied by taking care of wearables, AI, digitalization of the health that the patient has, something like health Aadhaar. Third thing that you can work on is looking at how to hire intelligent people who reduce a lot of costs. So if you have a good person in maintenance, a good engineer who can understand how to reduce the cost of water, conserve water, recycling, lighting, a lot of things go west. People keep lights on, move from, say, standard lighting to LEDs, use intelligent lighting. So if the area is not getting used, how to use that. Using again electronic systems, you can optimize the beds. So how to reduce the time that is taken to fill up the beds, how to optimally utilize OTs, have insurance companies create packages which you can really work on. So there are several small things where you can work and reduce the cost.
Right. So basically, optimally using your resources, be it manpower, be it your skilled workforce, be it your energy management, be it your financial resources, all about optimally using and taking best of the optimal usage for the outcome.
And add digital piece to it.
Digital,
Currently not
absolutely, absolutely, no denying the fact. I'll come back to Dr. Bhatkar. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Muktesh Narula. Mr. Narula, your take on this, please.
So we have industry leaders here. I'm from a technology company. As far as costing is concerned, so we facilitate the communications between the doctors and the patients. That's one segment. And I can assure that we do it at the nominal cost. So,
That's one part of you do it in nominal cost, but when you talk about the affordable healthcare, when you see that the technology service providers can work with hospital administration or the government or the healthcare ecosystem to ensure that the technology is affordable and cost effective. What's your take on that?
yes, so like Dr. said, to reduce the admissions for a longer duration. So what we facilitate is, the consultation over the communication channel instead of going to the hospital. So that's that way that we reduce the cost.
Right, I'll come back to you. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Kunal Punamia. Mr. Punamia, if I may ask you that, how much has telemedicine helped in making healthcare more affordable while not compromising on quality? Because there were apprehensions when, even before the session happened, there was apprehension about, okay, telemedicine has been embraced, but are patients ready or the doctors ready for telemedicine consultation? Because not everybody knows that when to consult for telemedicine or when to actually go to the hospitals. Because we are habitually going to hospitals. But how do you think that things have changed in the last 2 years?
In the last 2 years, telemedicine has been used very innovatively, and it's been more as a sense of requirement by the hospitals rather than the patients. Like it started from using telemedicine within the hospital. It started when you had your COVID wards and you had posted your resident doctors or some senior doctors who used to take rounds. You were trying to avoid others from getting exposed and try to keep minimal the number of people who would go inside. A lot of telemedicine happened at that time through WhatsApp calls, video calls,
probably having an iPad and then actually fixing it, cameras, having those monitored trolleys who are giving you information about patients, who are there in the wards, giving you data about patients and all. So it was something which came out of as a necessity. It was not seen as an innovation at that point of time that, I'm going to sell it in the market. Okay. Then next was that when your hospital beds were getting full because of the surge in the cases and we didn't have the required number of beds, then we tried to segregate that, okay, those who do not require OD support, can we manage them at home? While the doctors cannot really be present in the clinics, that is the time when we started doing telemedicine. Now, that type of telemedicine was the need of the hour. Shall we say that it's going to supplement healthcare entirely? I might not entirely agree with it. There is going to be some element of telemedicine involved, but one has to understand how and when to use it. Telemedicine is something wherein it can be more productive on follow-ups. It could be more productive while actually monitoring a patient after a certain procedure is done. He's gone back home, and you want to make note of facts as to what's happening, rather than asking him to arrive at your clinic every time and again over some small, some small things about some blood investigations. That could be done on telemedicine. One could get a radiology investigation done in some particular center nearer to home, send it across through the PACS network of that center. They are able to put it on cloud, the doctor can review it. So you need to understand how you will use telemedicine. Is it going to obscure the OP requirement of the patient wherein he need not come to the hospital? No, that won't be, because at the end of it, at times, you have to actually see the patient. You need to actually palpate the patient, to examine the patient appropriately, all of which currently I don't think most of us don't have that infrastructure in place. So it's going to evolve. But yes, telemedicine now, if you still use it for regular follow-ups, for some minor issues to just check on patients, you can help reduce the cost of healthcare for the patient. At the same time, you will have more time for your doctors, for your nurses to rather indulge in attending to patients who require your immediate care, rather than actually spending 15 minutes with a patient who just come to see the reports. Reports can be emailed. I can review and I can just have a conversation with you, and a prescription could be modified accordingly. So it's very necessary how you use telemedicine, and you should use it so that you can decrease the healthcare cost. At the same time, you will free up your time so that you can utilize it for the patient who actually require.
Right, as Dr. Kunal is saying, that is all about, it all depends on how we are using telemedicine. Again, judiciously, optimally, if I may borrow what Dr. Parker was saying in the beginning, that yes, telemedicine can solve a lot of problems. We talk about affordable healthcare, but at the same time, there will be moments when actually the patient needs to go to the hospital to see the doctor. But again, I think both the doctor and the patient has to decide when not to go to hospital and when to go for the consultation. That will again not only save cost, it will save time of human resources as well. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Converge Ukamani. Dr. Ukamani, do you think that a more evolved PPP model of partnership actually can help in expanding the scope of affordable healthcare, especially in a country like India?
Yeah, I fully agree. First and foremost, real-time example we have where there was a good PPP partnership with government and public forums and bed allotments, COVID testing, integrating COVID test to travel, everything it was integrated. In fact, this was the highest success of, I would say, this was a good time where we could test that India per se is now user savvy and we are quite competent now in information technology. It is, in fact, it is thanks to the industry that has supported us to actually cater to this pandemic, which was otherwise a huge nightmare. The pandemic has supported us to understand one or two more things. In case of sudden surge, we again will have to bank on infrastructure related to IT backgrounds. We may require a different modification at a different time. We may require, but we now need to integrate properly. The healthcare has to integrate properly with IT. The systems have to evolve whereby each and every requirement is catered to well within ambulance. These are, I would also add one more thing here. If you know, we have been talking about quality and all, NABH system integration with IT is something which we are lacking, and we request the industry to look into it. If NABH can be integrated with IT and the deviations are picked up earlier, maybe those type of scenarios where we finally land up in some kind of disaster management, instead we are proactively preparing ourselves for this kind of scenario.
A very important point raised by Dr. Neeraj, whether we can integrate NLEH with digital technology, which will help in preempting a lot of things and which will result in solving a lot of problems. Unseen problems can be solved in that way. I'll just take a perspective from Mr. Mukesh. Mr. Mukesh, you just heard Mr. Dr. Neeraj talking about the collaboration and partnership of healthcare service providers and hospitals and digitally connected ecosystem. Your thoughts on that, that how can it transform or it is transforming the healthcare paradigm in a country like India, especially in the new normal?
So, information reaching the people concerned at the right time is a big thing. And we have all seen that during the pandemic, the information which was spread to the people really helped take precautions, and the other things required for it. So I think that information, spreading of information is what we do well and it's important.
Right, but spreading of information, correct information, and reaching to the stakeholders is very important. Reaching out to the last mile is very important. I think during COVID, we have seen the kind of information which has been passed on to from the city level to district level to village level to doctors to citizens, and that has been remarkable. And how even the social media has been used again, leveraging social media to provide with the correct information to the stakeholder. That stakeholders can be government, that can be hospitals, that can be industry, and even that can be citizens. And because correct information reaching to the right people is very important. And again, technology has been a game changer in last few years in that. So we have talked about the affordability, the PPP model, optimizing the optimal use of resources and everything. Let me come to the insurance aspect as well. So we have with us Dr. Sandeep Goel, Director of Emergency Medicine, Fortis Hospital, Mulund. Dr. Sandeep, if I may ask you that, how much is the healthcare sector looking to optimally integrate with the health insurance providers to provide timely access to quality healthcare, because it's a very important issue. One thing is getting healthcare service, another thing is meeting the expense of that healthcare service, and insurance can see that. But what are the gaps and how those gaps can be filled to transform this kind of healthcare service providing vis-a-vis insurance?
Basically, our topic accessibility, affordability, and outcome of the patients. These all three topics are interrelated. What is current status in India? The quality medical care, quality patient care is neither affordable and not accessible for the most of the citizen. So this is the basic problem. So what is our aim should be the affordability, accessibility, and the quality. That should be at the equal level. So that is our aim, and the insurance schemes. I think if we see the trend over the last decade, many people we can see they come to the tertiary healthcare center and they are insured. So insurance is the one thing that bring the big evaluation where common man also can get a great access to the quality emergency care even at tertiary healthcare sector and the corporate health sector also. So what we have to do is that we have to do awareness in the public about insurance. We should just like we can see everyone has car insurance, everyone has a home insurance, but they don't have insurance among the people. So everyone, this insurance should be the norm of the life. Because not everyone requires this medical care, but it should be the just like a protocol. Every family should have insurance, and at that time they should get the quality care available at their doorstep. So again, the 2018, our Niti Aayog has published one data. 6 crores people are getting pulled down to the below poverty line due to the healthcare expenditure which they do from the out of pocket. So that we have to prevent that thing. So people, even suppose a corporate sector is available right in front of the road, but they can't offer, so they can't go there. So for that thing, the insurance should be the comprehensive. At the same time, we have to build accessibility. Now you go to the rural area, where the people, some people may have money, they have everything, but they don't have accessibility of the healthcare. Suppose acute myocardial infarction happened at the taluka place, or acute stroke happened at the taluka place. They don't have accessibility. They have to travel to the city place, or they have to travel to the tier 2 or metro to get that particular thing. So we have to increase the accessibility also. So we are a country of 1.4 billion, and our problems are very big. Insurance is one of the things we can do where affordable people are in metros that will solve the problem of the people who are staying in the metros. But insurance will not solve the problem of the people who are living in the rural area where there is no proper infrastructure or no clinical talent present at that place. So we require multidisciplinary approach to overcome this gap.
But Dr. Sandeep, taking through from what you have said, you were talking basically talking about the urban-rural divide, right? But even in the urban areas, the amount of premium which is shot up, especially for elderly people. Remember, the health insurance is quite high. The premium what they're paying. Imagine a person who is 75 years old and who has retired 15 years back. If you go for a medical, it's charging him 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs per annum. From where he get that money? So it's not about only urban-rural divide. The divide is very much there in the urban spectrum as well, and rural it's there. But I think you have raised a very important part that affordability and accessibility. If these two can be solved, then again insurance is going to be a major factor in that. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Shrikant Sabatkar. So your thoughts on this, on the insurance and the hospital ecosystem providing quality healthcare, affordable price.
All together will not be possible. Let me not sound as pessimistic. I come from Godrej Memorial Hospital. 80% of our patients are health insured. Hospital complaints, whenever I receive, 25% of the complaints are related to their bills. For the cash patients, non-insured patients, this 25% is gross. But for non-health insured people, it is 60 to 70%. Observe any BH standards, give quality care. Sir, mine is a consultant-based hospital, no full-timers, except CMOs allergies. So, consultants, they are in 5, 6 hospitals to get them for any emergency piece of help. But, despite that, my complaints are minimum because Godrej spends
through his trust. Non-COVID times and large number of patients, 4 crores, and last year 16 crores. During COVID time, it was 5, the corporation says minimum, and you are charging excess. There was everything everywhere. All this settled, and no complaint was, no merit was found in the complaint. But still, it is a headache. Despite spending 16 crore, this is the affair which my colleagues, their hospital is not private trust. Mine is a private trust. Godrej said it is 16 crores, 20 crores, whatever he spends, that is available. That is the reason. So I repeat, at the risk of not sounding pessimist, somebody has to pay. This is number one. Number two, digital technology wise, it has made excellent progress. COVID was precipitating factor. So many technologies were available right from 1998. Telemedicine has been available in Bombay, at least in the most rudimentary. But COVID precipitated. But it was a high case fatality rate. Now, case fatality rate is less. Today, newspaper says that there is epidemic, fourth wave or fifth wave, whichever it is. People have nothing to do with it. It was a crisis. We didn't know what is the nature of the disease. That united us. This is universal. Anytime there is a crisis, we unite. Once it is known, the glory glamour goes away. We have to remember, digital technology has come fast because brake applied, technology was available, it was not being used, it will be used. But now, subsequent progress, there will be 2 arrests, non-seriousness of the COVID, and second is the main danger. I will mention it, not elaborate on it. Consumer protection cases that act day by day, the prices are punishment, awards are increasing. I know it, I'm a practicing lawyer also. Number 2, if you compromise with quality, what will happen if you are hit? Scare of being hit is so enormous. So, whosoever you are advising, do this all together, it needs a brain. What do I tell my night duty CMO? We are not so well equipped. So, telemedicine, you have said that report and not previous session, but the report, you missed something, or there is a claim that you missed, you didn't read the report properly, and there is funding. Consultants can afford it, their immediately introduces 75 What about my full-time? That is what I would submit on you.
I can't stop myself from asking a question to you. As I said, you talked about these 2-3 aspects. What is the way outside?
I told has to be charity. For example, global hospital, they do so many transplants. There are poor people who can't afford. There is struggle. There are fundraisers and fund is raised. To achieve all this together, there has to be someone. My problem is solved, other states is spending. But others have to find resources. Otherwise, if it is not quality, your manpower will be exploited. Labor, 8-hourly duties. How many have 8-hourly duties? We are cutting corners there. Somewhere, you have to hit, and then when it comes to hit, it is your employees. Or else you hire employees who are substandard and paying in terms of consumer protection.
So there are various modes of financing. Again, crowdfunding, when health insurances, then there are various trusts. They are voluntarily coming forward, especially we saw at Milavati, we saw people coming forward to help. So at time of crisis, obviously funds come. There are various sources. Industries came from it. The overall scenario was not as bad in terms of COVID. If you see other countries, they did fairly well. And thanks to all of us who were part in some or the other. It was not only the COVID management, it was a management where most of the industries came together to help the family. So funds are, I fully agree. Even we are a charitable institute. We are going with the negative balance of charity. What we are supposed to do as per charity commission, we are at a negative balance of 45%. But that is part of the total scenario. You have to, in fact, you have to give us more means to develop funds and to subsidize patients who are less affording, to subsidize somewhere and probably hike up somewhere. So those sort of things are always there. So we need to understand where all we can cut down corners, where all we can cut down cost, and this cost consciousness may bring better healthcare for the people.
Cost consciousness resulting in better healthcare for community. Interesting take by Dr. Sandeep Go as well. I think we've come to the end of this discussion, but I can ask one question to all of you. Same one question to all of you. There's a lot of buzz around healthcare 4.0. Government is talking about that, industry is talking about that. You're representing the hospital ecosystem of the country. Do you think that health 4.0 is going to do what industry 4.0 has done for the manufacturing sector? And health 4.0 is going to help in ensuring affordable healthcare by reducing the cost by leveraging emerging technologies and using technologies. So let me have a perspective from Dr. Deepak Bhatta. Sir, your thoughts on that?
According to me, it's going to be a great boon to the society, to the entire 1.4 billion population. If we can make Aadhaar cards in a matter of 4 or 5 years and get the whole India connected, if you have health Aadhaar, you have wearables. There was a conference in Harvard 3 years back where they said about 80% of the patients getting admitted today can be treated with wearables at home. So somebody who requires surgery and intensive care only needs to come to the hospital, get admitted. Everything else, the medical management can be done today by sitting at home with healthcare at home. If you do that, and government can do that along with private sector, dividing into primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, and quaternary care. If that can be done, a lot of cost can be saved. We have modules. So if you can move on say mobile phone from 36 rupees per minute to free usage or 200 rupees per month, if we can do that as a country, I'm sure using technology and medicine together, we can reach much more than what is actually a research.
Right. I'll let you know perspective from Dr. Kunal Kunal. Dr. Kunal, your thoughts on that?
Population of 1.4 billion, where do you get more consumers than that for any industry? It all depends whether you have a product to cater to every cater of the society. Healthcare has to be probably, most of our hospitals, most of us are coming from charitable hospitals, even a corporate hospital where Dr. Sandeep belongs. Even they face the same challenges that we do. And at the end of it, all of us have the Robin Hood method of charging, where probably when a patient is going into a higher category,
is paying more, and you are subsidizing that cost, and they are actually subsidizing the cost for the people who are in the general. Today, insurance might cover a certain sector, but not everyone is insured. Even today in Mumbai, a lot of people do not have their own personal insurance. Their insurance that is covered from corporates. So there is a limit which is at times not adequate. That limit in various corporates have not increased by healthcare cost has increased. So till the time people become self-aware, and yes, the insurance companies also they have 1.4 million consumers available to them. What are they right now covering? Minuscule, negligible percent. So you have to look at your market and you have to devise your product accordingly. As far as affordability is concerned, costs are rising for every in every part of the in each industry. Definitely, healthcare costs are also increasing. When insurance comes with certain packages, what is the problem is that these are pure play administrators or MBA executives who never have probably worked in healthcare, understand intricacies of healthcare, but would like to put a price for healthcare. It cannot be a one-way thing. You need to have a collaboration, like there is an association like AHTI, which could be part of it. The government runs their own institute. They would be knowing what is the cost of running a bed in the ward of the hospital, what is the cost of running a bed in an ICU of a government hospital. They would have an idea. Based on that, why not have that data? And why not share it with insurance companies along with healthcare players and do a collaborative way so that it's a win-win for all? Yes, insurance premiums are going to go up. We have, if you see the world, we have been paying premiums. Yes, it's going to go up. It's going to come as a shock in the beginning, but you will have to accept it over a period of time. But at the same time, let us also understand that these insurance companies are not only selling healthcare insurance, right? It's just one vertical. It's just one vertical. And like I say, my general ward is not the only ward that I am catering to. It is just one ward. So like I say that in the general ward, I do charity. Probably they also do charity as far as healthcare is concerned. Because you don't have a fire every day, you don't have a theft every day, but you pay a high premium for all that. So there's a Robin Hood method of charging in everything. So please look at the consumer base you have and probably devise your market products based on it.
I really like that part when you said the Robin Hood method of deciding things. Thanks, Dr. Punamia, for your insights. Dr. Neeraj Uttamani, your thoughts on that, please.
There is a need of multi-sectoral thinking on this, and government should also be part of of all this discussion. This has to be a holistic approach. It can't be just insurance, just private hospitals, just government hospitals. There has to be some kind of a particular strata patient if he is getting good quality treatment at a government hospital as well. So fine, then the improvement in government sector is required. Then there is a middle level sector where the insurances and this and that. As rightly said, that primary, secondary, and tertiary care. Somebody rushing for fever to a multi-specialty tertiary care hospital is it justified? Just because his ability to pay is there, it is not justifiable from medical point of view. The beds you are occupying for a non-critical patient can be comfortably utilized for critical patients. So we have to be judicious in all this. Now this would not come by just a few hospitals or association of hospitals. It has to be multi-sector. It has to come, there has to be representation from insurance, from government, from private sector, and there is a need of the hour that you have to integrate and come up with a proper planning method which is so evident in developed countries. Okay, fine. We have little less resources as compared to them. But let's use those resources in a differential manner so that we can give benefit to our community to the maximum extent.
True, true, true. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Sandeep Puri as well.
I will talk a little bit more as well on this particular topic.
Yeah, sure.
Because this health for all and healthcare for all is a very important mission. We are going ahead with it. In that thing, I had one meeting with Dr. DK Paul of about that meeting. The challenges as a country are very high. As you can see, we can build the technologies, we can build the infrastructure, we can build everything, but where you will bring the manpower for this? And in India, the condition is like that 80 to 90% of population will seek the medical help only in emergency. Otherwise, nobody goes for routine checkup on them. When accident happens, they will seek the help. When just happens, they will seek the medical help. When they experience some weakness on one side of the body, they go and find out the care. They are looking for the emergency care. And emergency care, as compared to the Western country or the developed country, we are far behind that. One study which is published in 2018, central government and private government study, we have just 5% of emergency doctors available in this country as compared to the developed countries like UK, US, and Canada. Generally, what happens? Why this is important? Now we have big hospitals, we have heart transplant, we have liver transplant. But many CEOs and medical directors are there. I'm seeing that who can confidently say that they have world-class emergency department in their hospital. I think that is the one thing which that is the weakness of our healthcare system, because we don't have robust emergency care. How it affects the quality, affordability, and outcome. I will tell you now. Suppose what will happen? Emergency, that is sometimes when they suppose one patient goes with the chest into the hospital. For them, hospital is emergency department. If proper testing evaluation happens and if that patient can have some 10 to 15 differential diagnosis, if the simple doctor can do analysis and send that patient home. So the quality cost of care will be very less. But if that patient is not properly diagnosed and if I had gone for angiography and other things, so if that patient got directed to the wrong direction, that happens everywhere. So that cost will go very high. So simple, not all abdominal pain requires admission, not all fever patient admission, but all specialists will not be staying in hospital 24/7. One specialty is that is emergency medicine specialty, which can tackle the emergencies of all super specialties and specialties, and that we want to empower. That happens we empower the Sapanikas so that midnight we have doctor in emergency and he said that he is not confident whether he can do this thing. So if we place the confident person who can handle all types of emergency there, I think 90% of affordability and quality we can achieve in the simple state, because we lag behind as compared to the previous things. Now the last segment I will tell you about the quality of care. What comes with the quality? Quality, when you practice as per the standard, outcome will be very good. In stroke patient, if we get a thrombolysis within 3 minutes of arrival, outcome is going to be great. If an acute myocardial infarction comes in emergency department, if we diagnose properly and under the angioplasty within 90 minutes of arrival, his outcome is bound to be good. So, if you develop the robust emergency care across the country, not only the network, but also in rural care, we can save many lives, we can avoid unnecessary admission, and we can provide quality care, which will impact the entire healthcare system. I think if you could do that, then we will be able to achieve the Ayushman Bharat and other things which we plan to do for. Otherwise, it's impossible to pursue.
Again, interesting perspective by Dr. Sandeep Goyal. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Mukesh Narula as well. So, your thoughts on India on poised for 4.0? Do you think that will solve many problems of India's healthcare ecosystem?
Yes, so I will agree with what the first doctor said. that wearables is something which is certainly going to solve the problem of accessibility to the remote areas. The patients there and any clinical condition they can be monitored very well through the variables and the data they transfer. So that's certainly the problem is going to happen.
You have got all the right reason also. No, if you have some other perspective, you can share.
No, since I have worked on it, I've read about it, so I'm pretty confident. Yes.
But that's on a lighter note, let's say. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Shrikant Sapatkar. So your thought on the future.
Let us decide, are we talking of health or hospital? Ayushman Bharat, preventive, rural is one. We are experts, those who are sitting here, are urban NABH accredited hospitals. There is a vast difference between these. 1978, WHO had published a book by an author, very famous book, Where There Is No Doctor. In the morning, when the Assam example was given, I was wondering, which doctor is going to stay in Assam? Are we missionaries? Does the doctor not have a family? Let us not confuse ourselves. Let us not be wedded to idealistic conditions. Are we managing the hospitals, barring NABH, in the cities properly? Let us restrict to that. Health for all. By 2018, I have been a professor of community medicine teaching the topic ad nauseam. But I realized people have their own choices. For example, ordinary if you are going to a top grade hospital, what if it is convenient to him, if it is next door? He charges, if the charges are not fine, he pays. That cross subsidizes me. We are hospitals, our clientele has been decided. Godrej Hospital, local people they don't come, they feel it is a high grade hospital. So each hospital has by and large clientele which is either local or contacts with that consultant. It is not that come one, come all. Let us not fool ourselves. With reputation, people they do come from far and wide, and a hospital, once it has developed a reputation, people follow. Once the hospital bed occupancy is more than 200, it is affordable. Little cross subsidy or Robin Hood principle. That way, there is a laxity. Either that or else donations. Donations, insurance is one. Private plus, of course, there is an exception. But corporate social responsibility. Rather than spending merely on gardens or some purpose which is hidden, if there is corporate social responsibility mandating that government is allocating so much, let part of the corporate social responsibility go to that hospital. These are the ways. I'm basically harping on an issue that all those four elements which are being said, they're and affordable, it is not possible. My humble suggestion.
Thanks for your insights, Dr. Sapatkar. Really, I think I'll say it's a position like to be or not to be. But thank you so much. I think this has really been exciting panel discussion where diverging views has come, and that was a motto that when we were planning this session that let all of you leaders come together and express your opinion on what are your thoughts on ensuring affordable, accessible healthcare and how can actually we realize the vision of health for all. I think deliberations made in this session actually guide us all the stakeholders of the healthcare ecosystem to move into the right direction in future. At the end, I can just only say that we just take example of before taking example, I might refer to what Dr. Deepak Patkar was saying or Dr. Kunal Purania was saying. The Robin Hood philosophy or collaborative approach for an optimal use of resources, as all have supported that. Let's take example of COVID. What kind of wonders it has done. In a country like India, where we have vaccinated more than 100 crore people already, and again, there was no urban-rural divide. Even a rural person who is staying in the district or the villages, he had his name registered in the COVID app by himself or some other so that he can go for the vaccination and see that again the technological integration happened in COVID app, COVID website is remarkable. It's now a case study globally. So I think as you all have said that if we have a collaborative approach, we have the intention to solve the problem. I think in a country like India, as Dr. Kunal was saying, the population, think about the population, and that will define the market size. What we can do, if we can take the population as an opportunity but not as a challenge, I think private is ahead for India as a nation and India's healthcare system. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us for this panel discussion. Let's have a big round of applause for all of them. Dr. Deepak Patkar, Mr. Karuna, Dr. Kunal Sinania, Dr. Neeraj Vikram, Dr. Sandeep Gaur, Dr. Srikanth Sapatnekar. Thank you so much, all of you. I request Mr. Rajneesh, the consulting editor of APAC News Network, to come on stage and hand over the souvenirs to all our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much for shedding some light on very important issues of affordability and accessibility of healthcare. We can start with Dr. Deepak Patkar, Director of Medical Services and Head Department of Imaging, Nanavati Max Super Specialty Hospital. Huge round of applause for him, please. To Dr. Kunal Purani, CEO, SL Raheja Hospital of Fortis Associate. To Dr. Sandeep Gaur, Director, Emergency Medicine, Fortis Hospital. To Dr. Neeraj Vikram, Medical Superintendent, Leela Hospital. To Dr. Srikanth Sapatnekar, Medical Director, Godrej Memorial Hospital. And to Mr. Muktesh Narula, Associate Director, Pinnacle Teleservices Private Limited. Can we have a group photo of all the speakers together with their souvenirs in the hand, please? You can come. So these are the healthcare and hospital ecosystem leaders from of the country who has shed some light and given insights on the affordable and accessible healthcare in a country like India. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. With this, we move to the last session of the day of the prestigious 5th edition of APAC. Thank you. HealthTech Innovation Conclave organized by APAC News Network, and I'd like to thank our partners. Dell Technologies and Intel presents this conference. Our gold partners, Newman, SIP with associate partners, Nubuta, Nuance, and Pinnacle as well. I request Mr. Rajneesh to come on stage and start the next session. Over to you, Mr. Rajneesh.
Thanks, Shavik. As we start on the last session, this will be a fireside chat, and this talks about another important aspect in overall healthcare and pharma, which we have touched upon during some of the panels. We'd like to discuss it in more detail. Basically, reshaping the pharma and health supply chain management. And to participate in the fireside chat, we have with us today Mr. Vijay Shetty, Vice President Distribution and Logistics of Alchem Laboratories. Can I have Mr. Vijay Shetty?
Hello.
And we have with us Mr. Madan Sampat, the Chief Supply Chain Officer of HCG Group.
तो नहीं हुआ है अभी वो मटेरियल डाल रहा है गाड़ी में डाल के सब कुछ हो गया है रेडी करके अभी वो लोग निकल रहे हैं फाइल इसमें नहीं कर रहे वो प्रिंटर के यहाँ से जैसे सामान लेकर आपको फोन करता हूँ आप निकल अभी अप्रूव था अभी मिला है कस्टमर कैसा मार
Since the supply chain, we are looking at from the two aspects, both the pharma and the healthcare aspect. So we would like to
उनको बोलना मत बस या फिर आप लेकर रुक जाओ
on some of the
मैं इधर से पीछे पीछे थोड़ा सा पता लगे थोड़ा गाड़ी पंचर हो गया ऐसा वैसा आना थोड़ा टाइम रुका दी मैं
one obviously many of the aspects depending on the impact. We know that there
आप
was
चेक आगे जाके वहाँ पे रुक जाइए
in the initial days of the pandemic. So you can tell us what was the impact of the pandemic on the pharma and to create a more resilient and better supply chain, what were the initiatives that were undertaken?
Thank you for inviting me to the panel. Yeah, when the pandemic began, I would say initially it was more of a chaos in terms of because most of the hospitals which were operational, I would say regular hospitals were shut or they were only taking patients, medical representatives were not allowed to enter the hospitals. And I would say the regular product which used to get sold in the hospitals were actually the sales clearly went down. Okay, this was for a month or so, but later on we could clearly collaborate with the hospitals and the other institutes as well on phone, on like on Google Meet or Zoom calls in terms of like what are their requirements, how we can actually fetch it. Okay, the government of India also made things easier for the pharmaceutical industry, like anybody who's like in the pharmaceutical industry, the trucks were not stopped. We had easy passage of delivering the products to the hospital. The disruption part was that suddenly things changed. Okay, so Alchem predominantly is recognized as a number one company in the antibiotic field. Okay, but what suddenly happened is that there was sudden surge in terms of the requirements. Antibiotic sales we saw a surge in vitamins, we saw a surge in certain products for paracetamol and things. And that actually created a little bit of imbalance in terms of at times it used to happen because at factories the norms were a bit stricter. If any COVID cases would come, you had to actually shut down the entire facility. Still, you actually do the entire quarantine activity, and after a week's time, you can even start your operation. So that used to get impacted, and I would say initially our stock levels were down, but then I would say when we were nearing the second phase, at that time we were very clear that not only on the raw material side, but on the finished goods side, we'll have to double our inventory days. So definitely we had a pinch on the working capital, but we made sure that the supplies were not.
And in the hospital angle, obviously what you mentioned was also in terms of a lot of cases supply chain management and the timing has been critical. So from the hospital perspective, how
Yeah. So when we look at overall the supply relationship that evolved in the healthcare industry on the Africa, whether it's for good or bad,
the importance of relation between the pharma companies and hospitals really developed and matured over the period of the last 2 years. Because always healthcare has been one industry where the supply chain was not transactional. It was never in terms of collaborative approach. But post-COVID, the overall segmentation was created. Who are my critical partners? Who are my strategic partners for the business? So that has really evolved over the period. Today, if you see all the healthcare and pharma companies work together on several initiatives specific to supply chain. Like let it be in terms of blockchain to track the end-to-end product visibility. Right? Where we are also working with few pharma manufacturers to understand where the leakages are, how to take control of the expiry management, how to ensure the stock situation. So in a lot many ways it has actually evolved and maturing as we say.
What are the sort of the tools, say inventory management, or when you are talking about sourcing also from multiple sources? So what are the tools
So prior to pandemic, we had a specific tool on SAP. We were working on APOs, that is advanced planning tool. But when the pandemic happened, we actually tried to look at making sure what is beyond that particular technology, which means that can we actually get the demand on the ground, which means demand sensing was very important because things were changing rapidly. And we felt the need that if we are stuck to the system, okay, we are not going to be ahead of the curve. So we looked into revamping our planning system, trying to see that okay, how do we collaborate with our suppliers also, because suppliers also needed that kind of a visibility in terms of how the demand variation is there for the customers which they are serving. So to ensure that on the supply side we are secure, we had clear demarcation in terms of the forecast given to our suppliers with our requirements, and on the manufacturing end, we made sure that there is a demand sensing which is happening, which means that how the products are moving from our distributors to the hospitals or distributors to the trade. That kind of linkage was clearly looked at, and we looked into the demand pattern of like how things were happening. So with demand sensing, of course, a bit of, I would say, still we are working on it, but we are hoping that in the next 1 year we will adapt to new technologies like on demand sensing tool once it gets mature, and using some kind of an analytical tool like in the previous session we talked on a lot of AI and ML, which will have predictive forecast or predictive demand driven inventory levels. That is where we are now looking at moving towards.
Okay, so the demand side that he is talking about, much of the demand side will be generated from hospitals, at least a significant part of that. So, and when he's mentioning about applying predictive analytics on basically that data on that demand side that is coming. So, do hospitals also, in terms of obviously, because again, giving the pandemic example, when suddenly there was a huge influx of patients into hospitals. So, are there mechanisms that hospitals are looking at also to apply some analytics so that you can do your predictions better?
Indeed. In fact, for the last 2 years, it was more of as is requirement, right? Because we really cannot predict what's happening overall in the industry. Every now and then there is a new wave or a new requirement that comes in. So what we're doing now, since things are settling down, since the market is opening, we are redefining the entire, let's say the VED analysis, right? What's vital, essential, and desirable. Because last 2 years, I would say mask and gloves become the vital one than any other drugs. Right? So that can't continue further. So right now we are looking at what is key for us moving forward. Because the last 2 years spent, if you look at it, it's predominantly the COVID-related spend. But now the general surgeries and procedures have started to evolve. So we are redefining all the new needs. What is the demand forecast that is required moving forward for the next 6 months or so, and working closely with the pharma companies to ensure that the supply chain is not at risk like before. Right? So today, in terms of governance and in terms of risk management, there is a clear definition for supply chain, which were initially more in the back end. Now that's given priority. So there are a lot of levers that's put in place in terms of risk management that's helping us to connect with our partners and make sure of the inventory.
So another part again, coming back to the pharma part, we mentioned the paracetamol example, and especially in the last 2 years, paracetamol was one we have seen with remdesivir or other. So there were these whatever reasons or whatever other information, there were these I would say periodic fluctuations, and so keeping that in mind, how do you still manage reducing the wastage and eliminating redundancies when suddenly the supply chain, because that's a critical aspect.
So as far as Alchem is concerned, we never had, like when we talk about remdesivir or certain products, okay, which was claimed to be effective. So somehow we did not have the scientific confirmation from our scientists. What we did was we did not venture into it. Okay, not like other pharma companies who went into this and piled up stocks. Of course, yes, for Fabiclo, we did take a couple of batches. We had exclusive marketing for a particular dosage form. We did that, and after that, when we looked at that, okay, on the long run, we really don't want to play on this because we really see the risk on the inventory side. That's where we actually decided to do that. But what we did scale up was on the, I would say, things to build on immunity, because we clearly believe that is helping, because health is wealth, and how we can help in terms of supporting that. So certain products to do with vitamin D or vitamin, I would say multivitamin. We have a nutraceutical products which actually helps in terms of building immunity. So we focused more on that particular segment to actually make sure that these are definitely going to be a running trend in the long term to come as well. So whether pandemic or post-pandemic, definitely during the pandemic, the demand surge was too high for all the vitamins, paracetamols, and all the IV things. But when it today also, I would say we are not very much impacted because we know that the stocks are going to sell.
Okay. Coming back again on the hospital aspect, we look at the overall hospital ecosystem, and one of the important stakeholders are the doctors and the other caregivers. So when we are talking about the hospital supply chain, how integral are the role of the doctors and other caregivers, and how is that coordination happening with the supply chain management in hospitals?
So traditionally, it has always been in the therapeutic committee, right? The main formulary is decided alongside the medical directors and the key clinicians. So they decide which drug is required, and then the formulary is made accordingly. The importance of the supply chain and the pharmacy department here is to pick which brands that goes into it, to ensure all the certifications are taken care of, to ensure all the basic criteria are met to have those brands within the formulary. But overall, we will have the operations, we have the pharmacy department, we have the clinicians and key doctors and nursing department for all the consumables to define the main formulary for any hospital. So it's a combined approach what is done. So once the formula is defined is when we go ahead and start the negotiation and go on with the particular price.
Okay. And this is a question to both of you. How do you look at things like sort of scenario planning or simulating a model to basically check the supply chain resilience, both from a farmer's side as well as from a healthcare side?
Scenario planning, not only from the demand side but also from the supply side, is also very important. Okay, pandemic had taught us that manufacturing alone cannot be the base. You need to have all the stakeholders together. So, for example, India today also is highly dependent on sourcing its raw materials from China or other developed countries. Okay, so we just can't be complacent about saying that we just can't ignore anybody. At the same time, when it comes to on the demand side from the hospitals or from the general physician side as well, okay, we clearly see that the collaboration with the hospitals and the institution is also very important in terms of trying to see, because at the end of the day, this is a win-win situation for the pharma companies as well as the institutions. Okay, so when we look at in totality, when we plan things, we look at the complete scenario. What does it mean? Inventory is critical in today's context. Okay, though I can tell you, pharma companies are bleeding with regards to their margins when it comes to, because the freight rates, if you have to import anything from China or from other countries, it's actually gone up to 10 times. Okay, so there was a time where you were not procuring your APIs locally. Today, you are actually going to your local manufacturers. At least you know that you would make and provide you. Whereas when it comes to the import part on your API supply, you're not sure because China just went through COVID and we know the kind of the loss that we would incur. So we were clearly prepared that this is definitely going to be the scenario. You can't be complacent and like trying to look at, okay, this is the only scenario which worked 2 years back and it would work. And that's why supply chain becomes very, very critical in the long run in terms of like how do you plan this scenario, not only from a planning perspective, the supply chain professionals now need to think like an entrepreneur. Okay, saying that if this is not happening, it will have a repercussion also on the other side of it. So if demand is impacted, definitely your supply side is not going to get up and like provide everything. Okay, like okay, yeah, you want this, it is not there. So they also require some advanced plan.
So this supply side, this regional dependency thing, the China thing that you mentioned, and what you are suggesting is more of stopgap kind of solution. But this scenario from the supply side, if it gets repeated, what's a permanent kind of solution to that? This regional fluctuations of
the permanent solution is that earlier we were looking at qualified 2 suppliers. Now we're looking at qualified 5 suppliers. Okay. On the demand side, now we're looking at okay the territory which we did not venture. We said that okay only we will look at now corporate hospitals. Okay. Now we are saying that on the demand side we have to also go further and also look at the other nursing homes, other institutions as well in terms of collaborating in terms of the demand. Similarly, from the other part as well, when we talk about okay, pharma industries facing competition, let's say from the funded companies like pharmacies or the networks or the 1mgs of the world, how do we actually face that? Okay, ultimately they are also selling Alchem's product into the market, but then how do we ensure that the supply gap management is actually making sure that the surge when it happens, you clearly have inventory because ultimately these companies are not manufacturing that product. Alchem is manufacturing the product. Or manufacturing companies are manufacturing. So one has to keep a tab, keep all the stakeholders clearly looked at. The predictability part becomes very, very crucial here. Scenario, one is the risk mitigation action. If you don't have a BCP in terms of like if anything happens or your plant shut down, anything happens, what will happen? Okay, whether you will be able to supply or not supply, that also has to be looked at. So I can give a classical example just because of the scenario planning. Okay, there's something called as a multivitamin. I'm sure a lot many must have heard about this brand called Conclave. Okay, it's a multivitamin. Okay, the moment we got to know that Conclave plant has shut down, Alchem clearly came up with a new brand saying that this is what it is. Okay, and our product, it's not that we replaced the brand, but we took opportunity of that particular situation and made sure more and more products for our organization is actually getting consumed in the market because people required those drugs. Okay.
That would require really fast coordination with marketing also.
Exactly. As I said, supply chain professionals now cannot be sitting in one place and saying that, oh, I will then add things and all that. They have to think like an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
It has to be that way.
So, very interesting example. From the hospital perspective, the funding or budget is very critical, and that budgeting or funding can often be a challenge on the supply chain management, especially where you are coming from the demand side. So, how do you align with the budgetary challenges, even maintaining the proper supply chain?
So during the last couple of years, it has always been a challenge with the finance folks, right? So we go for a particular need, and then there are a lot of constraints on the cash flow management as well. While we work with operations, the demand on one side is increasing, where we do have supply issues coming from our partners, and the finance wants to retain the cash flow. Right? So today, what we do is we work closely, as we said, we work closely with the marketing team, with the operations, with the finance to clearly understand how far we need to stretch and what is the risk that can be taken in terms of the overall increasing our inventory as well. Right? So with marketing, it all depends on what kind of schemes they go into, which region they are targeting on for the following month or following quarter. Because today we have, let's say, 26 hospitals across the network in 12 cities. Right? So we need to focus on what is my fast-moving drugs and what is going to be the next upcoming procedure, a new doctor who's going to join. If he's got a separate target of increasing all these procedures, whether I need to relook into my overall forecast and planning as well. So today we work with finance hand in hand to ensure that there are no issues on the cash flow overall. But yes, budgeting is something where today supply chain is more and more added into the discussion. Like I clearly mentioned, we are not in the back office anymore. We sit along with the operations team to ensure what is needed for the hospital for the next quarter, and also we take care of the overall budgeting exercise for the year as well. Let it be on the capital equipment, let it be on the new projects that comes in, let it be on the pharmaceutical and the consumer requirements.
Thank you. So before we conclude, with each of you looking ahead, maybe next 18 to 24 months if we look at it, what you feel are going to be the key focus areas for supply chain management, and what are the areas where you are expecting to see changes?
I would say like the pharmaceutical organization work predominantly in two major verticals. One is the trade business and one is the export business. Okay? So what we looked into like during this pandemic was that order taking, receiving the order or giving in the visibility of the inventory, okay, was a challenge. So what we're doing is we are digitalizing the entire order to cash process. Okay? So instead of like putting checks, we are now saying that let's pay digitally. Okay? You will get to know what is happening on our clear portal. Similarly with hospitals, what we are trying to do is like big hospital like HCG, Fortis, and other things. We are trying to collaborate so that the entire order management gets digitalized, and also they see inventory. Okay, so instead of they keeping huge inventory at their end, we can have our distributors maintain some kind of an inventory levels, and the moment it moves down, we can auto replenish. so that at any given point of time during the spike or like they can run with a minimum inventory. I think that's the funding topic that we talked about. So how can we also look come to the rescue here in terms of like hospitals keeping those minimum inventory and like it would be replenished by our distributors as and when required. Okay, so this is one action that we are targeting. At the same time, we are looking at data in a big way. Okay, where exactly the sales are happening. Okay, today one of the challenges that we also face many times because when it comes to pharmaceutical for trade and for hospitals, the pricings are different. In fact, like pricings are more attractive when it comes to hospital because there is a bulk purchase involved. Our challenge as a supply chain professionals is that many times these products they come into the trade market, okay? And we have complaints coming from our trade partners saying that we're not able to sell because like you are giving some extra discount and it is flowing. So we're trying to collaborate with hospitals and trying to build a solution around it. As of now, we are still working at a conceptual stage, and hopefully that in the next 1 year, what we're trying to see that to solve this problem by collaborating with the hospitals and trying to see that actual consumption is happening. The other topic that we are investing very heavily as of now is the counterfeit. Okay? Because what is happening is there are certain unauthorized distributors like who are also supplying products to the hospitals. Okay? And at times we have found that they are typically counterfeit or they don't have that kind of a thing. So we would like to spread those awareness as well in terms of like how you can have an authentic product, okay, and make sure that the entire transparency is built in right from the end to end. The track and trace mechanism is actually also visible to our trade partners or our hospitals so that like, they are assured that what they're buying it.
As per opinion, one important point you mentioned about counterfeit products, and especially from the hospital side, what are the measures you are taking to sort of, if not eradicate, ideally it should be eradicated completely, but minimize the counterfeit and the overall, the same question from the hospital perspective, next 18 to 24 months, what are you see as a priority areas in supply chain?
So today, there is way more focus on, especially hospital supply chain, than it was pre-COVID. So everyone is looking at, okay, what are these guys going to do in terms of technology and digitalization? So before we jump into bringing in new tools, new technology, I think it's more important to analyze the maturity and the complexity of the supply chain today. Right? Do we have the skilled manpower to whatever tools we bring in to work on it, to deploy and then make sure the results are taken care of? So as a short term, the first target is to train the people, train the manpower, understand the needs. The majority of the issue goes into the end-to-end supply chain. Right? I need to understand what is happening at the pharmaceutical end from their warehouse till it reaches the patient. Where does the product go? What is the overall supply chain visibility of these products? And where can the technology help me? Right? I don't want to simply bring in a tool or digitize the entire supply chain and still work on ourselves and writing a paper. So today, the important need, what I'm looking at is understand what I really need, what kind of tool brings what outcome, how does it justify the spend overall, and also ensure that whatever we put in has a long-term value to it, instead of just plugging in a software and say, okay, it's going to help me optimize the overall situation. We need to understand what exactly is needed.
Okay. So thanks. I would like to invite is there. So before we conclude, thanks to both of you for participating in the fireside chat on supply chain. And I would invite Gopi Krishna Arora to come on stage to hand over the leadership award.
निखिल स्टॉल बढ़ गया है ये कैसे कर
तो मैंने अभी आपको फिर नहीं मैं आपको नंबर ला रहा हूँ कितने हैं स्टूडेंट्स तो जो कनेक्टिंग वाला लगा है ना जो व्हाट्सएप में था जैसे वो तो एज इट इज रहेगा कर लीजिए
एक मिनट यार गाड़ी निकल रही है 5 मिनट एक 10 मिनट में खत्म हो जाएगा ये चलो हमें फोन कर
ठीक है
ये
Thanks to all the delegates who are present and who are outside also. So with this session, we conclude today's HealthTech conference. And we would again like to thank all the partners who supported us. Dell Technologies, Lumen, Citrix, Murata Wires, Pinnacle. And I would also like to take this opportunity to announce that the next edition of the HealthTech Innovation Conclave, we are looking in south towards Hyderabad, and in a couple of months, we will be having this next edition of the HealthTech Conclave in Hyderabad, and we would share with you in a few days' time all the details regarding any of your peers and colleagues and partners who would like to participate in the conclave in Hyderabad are most welcome. So with that, thanking all of you again, we conclude today's discussion.
ये तो अलग हो गया ना ये भी कल एक बार गया था मेरे राउंड को बोलो राउंड हो गया ना